All right, welcome to the Nonfiction Showcase, the inaugural Nonfiction Showcase. I'm Ross Brand. Joining me is my co-host for the afternoon, Dale L. Roberts, and we're going to be featuring 20-plus authors over the next 4 hours. You know, I like to say, Dale, when I start a show, I say, let's do a show. So
Let's go all in.
because it's 4 hours, I said, let's do a showcase.
We decided we're going to do the Lord of the Rings of virtual book fairs.
So we want to thank eBook Fairs, who's our sponsor and partner in this effort. There is a virtual fair alongside of the live stream that goes from today for a week, and you can vote for your favorite author or your favorite book that you see here on the show today. You can go, if you're a fan of Dale, go to dalelinks.com/vote. If you happen to like me, and I don't know why, you'd go to livestreamuniverse.com/vote. dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. Hopefully, Kenny Myers, who is the founder of eBook Fairs, will be joining us momentarily. But Dale, I know you've been a longtime user and partner with eBook Fairs. Tell us a little bit about eBook Fairs and how a virtual book fair actually works.
Well, from the author side of things, it's essentially a book marketing tool where you're able to work and collaborate with other authors and showcasing your books on one virtual stage. So think of it like a in-person book fair, but on a virtual page. And then readers can come in and browse the books that are available. And it's typically randomized how they will see those books in what order. So here's the funny thing. You can go back in and vote numerous times as a reader, but they will limit you after a while. But every time that you refresh that page, those books are going to change order. It's going to tell you where you can pick up the book. It's going to tell you a little bit more about the author. It's going to tell you a little bit more about the book. All I can say is go on over to dalelinks.com/vote and go in there and vote and just browse the page. But for eBook Fairs, I'm just going to go ahead and do a shameless promotion here for them. It's ebookfairs.com. Get yourself set up with an account. They run about roughly $10 per month or about $100 per year. So worth it. That's not the only tool that they have, because you can get editorial reviews. They have some book description generator as well. There's a lot going on with eBook Fairs. So we're really happy that they decided to work with us. I know how did we come up with this idea, Ross? What were we thinking? Because 4 hours, for crying out loud, like what was the whole idea behind this here, man?
It's great because as people running a fair, you get a chance to actually meet the authors and talk to them. I know a lot of the people coming on are from our network, so we've talked to them before, but not necessarily specifically about their book and really going behind the scenes of their book and introducing their book to a wider audience, because we're going to have audiences from all the different authors coming over, as well as our communities. So a lot of exposure for those books. And then when people go over to eBook Fairs and look at the Nonfiction Showcase page, they can see all the different books. They can click on through and buy from one of the booksellers. They can check out the different people's social media. A lot you can do over at eBook Fairs. You can also sign up for an account at ebookfairs.com. So definitely the links are down below for eBook Fairs as well. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing, how people react to the opportunity to support the different authors who we have on here today. We've got, quite a mix. You've brought a lot of people from the self-publishing industry. I brought a lot of creators and professionals, and it's going to be fun seeing them all mixed together today throughout 4 hours.
Yeah, it's going to move really fast here, folks. And make sure that you stay tuned for the entire time because each one of these interviews are going to be about 10 minutes. And Ross and I are going to do our best to see if we can pull as much information out of them as possible. Because selfishly, the two of us would love to learn a little bit more from these professionals because they've succeeded at the level for a good reason that they're at right now. So we want to learn as well as you. So make sure you stay tuned to the entire broadcast. It's going to move real fast. We were going to have Kenny on, but maybe he got stuck in traffic. So I think it's probably good time that we can at least talk a little bit more about the virtual book fair. So essentially, what we're trying to do, see, Ross and I, we don't go for number 2. We don't go for number 3. The two of us are very competitive, and we would like to see if we can get number 1, best in show. But we want to also assure people that as you watch today's broadcast, it's going to give you a good idea of each one of these authors. So before you start casting your vote for the books that you want, obviously, if you want to vote for Ross or me, that's totally fine. But maybe hear out everybody else here because everybody's shooting for best in show. These are amazing authors. These are amazing professionals. These are amazing experts that all deserve a little bit of your time. So make sure you stay tuned. Now, Ross, this is one thing I love to do. Since we're broadcasting everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, everywhere. What I would like to hear for Twitch, good Lord, we're not on Twitch that much.
LinkedIn.
So at any rate, what we need you to do is, could you tell us where are you watching from? So the platform you're watching, be it X, Twitter, YouTube, whatever it might be, just go ahead, let us know. And what part of the world are you watching from? We want to hear where you're from. And of course, do you have a book that you published? If you have published a book, tell us what that book is and your author name. Please, no links, because otherwise, some of these platforms get a little bit ban heavy and we don't want them kicking you out.
So we've got a lot of people already in the chat, a lot of people from your community. We've got, I see Steve Serrell is there from the Outstanding Creator Awards. Jenny Mustafa.
Championship belt.
Yes. Talk about getting competitive. You and I are going to be going at it for that.
Yes.
Jenny Mustafa Julak is here. She's going to be on later to talk about her book, Hilda, and just a lot of people here. I'll let you say hello to your folks as we take a break between different authors. So hang in there. But we're going to bring on our first author. She is a popular social media personality, I would say, very popular on Instagram, but she's also a PhD. She's a mental health counselor, an advocate, and an author of a book called Be Inspired. And I can't wait to bring her on. So let's go ahead and do that. And it is the great B. Smith. B, welcome.
Hi, guys. Hey, what's going on?
It's great to talk to you. It's been a little while since we've talked live. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book, Be Inspired.
Be Inspired was a book written for, people that always felt like they just didn't quite fit in. You just never found your jam. You never found your people. You never found your space. And I was one of those people. Since I was 6, I just always felt like I never fit in. I always felt like I was a little awkward. And I just wanted to write that book for that awkward person, because as I began to go through my journey, I learned that I'm uniquely me. And there's the joy in knowing who you are and being who you are, and people will naturally gravitate towards you. So I wrote that book for all those people.
Yeah, and the subtitle, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy. Obviously, people will get the whole game plan when they get the book, but give us a few tips that you could share for people who might be struggling right now.
So for people who might be struggling, I think it's one of the tips called forgive and let live. How long can you really blame other people, even if they were at fault? That chapter talks about how once you forgive, you truly set yourself free. You set the other person free, but more importantly, you set yourself free and you're able to move forward. And I talk about my struggles with forgiveness and how that affected my mental health. And then as I went through therapy and learned how to, I was going for my PhD when I wrote this book. So I made everything very practical. very succinct, that anybody could read it, like a little golden book, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you when you produced this manuscript for your book?
Man, it was cleansing. Like, I was in New Mexico writing, and I just remember everything I was going through. So you go through a lot of emotions when you're pouring out like that, but then the
Yeah.
nuggets would just come. And I was like, I've got to share this. And I actually was going live on Periscope as I was writing the manuscript. And that's how the publisher found me and was like, hey, we want to turn that into a book. We're going to make it happen for you. And I was like,
Nice.
oh, wow.
Wow. So
Yeah.
through live streaming, very
Through
good.
live streaming.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we connected, and we met for the first time at an event called Summit Live in 2017.
Oh my
I think
God.
actually we connected through a mutual friend when she was hosting her show,
Yeah.
and we were both guests on the show.
Oh, Jenny.
Yeah. So, what kind of feedback did you get from people? You write certain types of books, and people will tell you they love the book, whatever. Obviously, you must get some pretty personal feedback on this book without having to mention any names or anything. What are some of the ways that the book has touched people?
I hear inspiring, but more than anything, I hear motivation. And the University of Reykjavik in Iceland, they actually say that it's motivating, and they use it in the English department for their students. And the professor told me how they take notes, and they turn these books in at the end of the semester, and how the change that he sees in his students from the time they come in to the time the semester is over. And they've been getting this book. It's been there since 2017. I think he got inducted into their library in 2017, and they're still using it. I mean, it works. It's practical. It's easy. And that was to know that I'm helping students in other countries. People turn their lives around, know that they can start over, just being vulnerable and sharing my journey, even the ugly parts. It frees so many people. So motivation, and it's the biggest thing I hear about it. It's motivating. It's changing.
Yeah. Was this something organic that you were able to get this placement? Because that's pretty freaking awesome. Congrats.
It's pretty awesome. I don't know how we got in the University of Reykjavik. I think so. Me and my cohorts, we were going to Iceland. And so I reached out to the library. That's what happened. I reached out to the library and I said, hey, I got a couple American books. I said, can I submit them to you? And so I submitted them to them. They end up taking 3 books, but mine is used in the English department. Like, it's on their read list. Like, they use it.
That's
That is
impressive.
wild.
The regular version doesn't have lines, but in Europe, they have lines and they take notes. And so they turn those books back in. It's like a little notebook, like a little journal.
That's fantastic.
Interesting. So you're getting a lot of sales then, probably from being listed in there. Oh my gosh. Can you just handle all of my books from now on, B?
Thank you, University of Reykjavik. If nobody else buy my book, you will.
Exactly. There you go.
But a lot of mental health agencies, I've done talks for NAMIs, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, a lot of churches here, especially locally in Oklahoma City and Texas, a lot of youth groups. Yeah, very helpful for people that are going through any kind of life change. But the youth is turning the tide. I'm starting to see the youth are buying this book even more. We're talking middle school to high school.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the journey of a book.
It really is. And, like you said, this book's been out for a while and it's still continuing to make an impact. What are any other interesting, surprise stories? Whenever you do a book, there's something I think that comes along that surprises you. And you've already given us a huge one when you mentioned being used in the English department. Easy for me to say in Reykjavik.
So, like a fun story?
Just something unusual, like you wouldn't have expected when you were doing the book. I mean, being in the English department in Reykjavik is not something that was on my list of things that anybody was likely to say today.
Well, can I give you something that hit me when I read my own book?
Sure.
how when you write things down, how your dreams come back. When I was little, I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a doctor of the mind. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to be on TV. And and here's the thing. I've never worked for a network, but I have been on so many networks. I'm the longest running person on TMZ. I'm B from OKC. Like, this book and this journey has opened up so many things for me. And I think it was because me writing it down. And I'm so grateful to God. I had to say that for giving me the desires of my heart, and just the things that I wrote down and the things that I said. To see them in print, it's like, hey, this is what I dreamed of. This is what I said I wanted to do with my life. And there's still so many more places I want to see, so many more places I want to go, so many more books that I want to write.
Of course. When you how did you go about, any advice for people for getting TV opportunities? Obviously you're great on TMZ, so they keep having you back. But as far as, like, maybe book interviews or shows where they want to talk to you about your book, like news shows or morning shows or anything, do you have any advice on how you went about doing that?
All right. I should be charging for this, but this is a
Send the bill in the mail. We'll take care of it.
It's Dale L. Roberts. No.
Right, exactly.
Make you check out for this much. No, but seriously, for anyone, if you have a really good news tip or you've got something that you want to share on television, find out who that local producer for that show is, and just pitch it to them. Just pitch it. Anybody can do it, and just pitch it to them. I got a whole 4-segment series on NBC Network, and just because I sent it to him and I was ready and it was prepared, I said, hey, it's Mental Health Advocacy Month, and I want to reach the people in my community. I said, I've got 4 segments and they're ready. I said, what do you think? And then I waited, it came back. And so I got to shout out to KFOR for always just supporting my mental health advocacy, suicide prevention, promoting my book, like you're doing right now, Fairs and Ross and Dale. It's an amazing thing. So find out who that producer is for that particular channel, that segment. Producers, they have morning, day, and night. So find out who that is. And it's not hard to do. You can just make a phone call and be like, who the producer for such and such? Send them an email.
Any plans? Any plans for a future book?
Yes, there's one in the works.
Uh-oh.
You think you're willing to divulge?
It's good. Yeah, so I'm working on a novel. And that's another one of my goals, was to write a novel. I love the self-help book. I love the leadership books. I love the live stream books that you have given me just the opportunities to be a part of. But my heart wants to do a novel so bad. So, like, I'm excited. I've been working on it for a few years, and I'm excited.
What's the niche, if you don't mind me asking?
Huh?
What's the niche, if you don't mind me asking?
Romance.
Romance. Nice. That's a good field to break into. I'm not, no joke. You're going to do okay, B. I think you're going to do okay.
You're so good.
All right. So we only have a couple seconds left before we move on to our next interview. Just tell everybody where they can find you, and any last pitch for people to vote for your book.
All right. So you can find me. You know what? I thrive on Instagram. I don't know what it is. It used to be Facebook, but Instagram is like the place. So you can find me at Be Inspired Talk, and there you'll have all the links. See, I'm always talking. You find all the links to any of my other websites or anything like that. And you should just vote for my book, because, like I said, it's for everyone. You know, they always try to tell you, you got to put it in this thing. But Be Inspired is practical steps for anyone choosing or wanting to live a life full of joy, and how to get there. A lot of people give advice, but they don't really tell you how to get there. And they don't share that it's not always easy either. So I love that it's a practical book. And sometimes I pick it back up myself, because I have to remind myself of those steps that it took for me to get well, those steps that it took for me to get healthy. And I'm thriving and living a life.
Thanks for joining us. The book is Be Inspired, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy. That is B. Smith. Thank you so much. And talking about getting local media, our next guest knows something about that. Would you like to introduce Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I've known this guy for, gosh, a few years now. Good friend of mine. Boy, we're on a texting level. Let me just tell you, Jason Jones is a 20-year publicist. He's worked with many athletes, celebrities, and authors. This dude knows everything you need to know when it comes to getting more exposure for your book. And in fact, he's got a book called Landing Local Media, welcoming Jason Jones. Jason, you're a repeat offender over on my channel. We're glad to have you here finally, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry I scared you, not being on a few minutes early like you asked me to. I had a fire I was putting out, so I apologize. But glad to be here.
Yeah,
on time is perfect.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and let's dive into Landing Local Media, your book. This is one that I recommend to every author out there. So describe a little bit about what inspired you to write this book and what can people expect when they read it?
Yeah, good question. Well, you said I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I have. And one of the most common mistakes I see people make, and particularly over the last several years as the self-publishing sector has continued to just explode. A lot of people jumping in, writing books, a lot of them great books, but they're not sure how to market their books or how to properly do publicity. The first thought that jumps into their mind is, hey, how do I get on the Today Show? Hey, how do I get on Fox News? How do I, get on, any of these huge shows? And that's a big mistake for a lot of reasons. Those shows, as I explain it in the book, are nearly impossible to land because the competition is just so impossibly fierce. But you're not ready to do those shows. If you've never done media before, the last thing you want to do is have your first interview be on a huge platform like that, because it's not going to be your best. You need to get some seasoning, and you need to do something local because you're always relevant at home. You're going to be able to be a regular on your local media. Much more likely that happens for you. You can continue to move books. You can book speaking engagements. Just gain that seasoning and that flavor that you need so that you have a clip that you can eventually send to those bigger shows and say, hey, look at me. I'm an entertaining guest. I'm informative. I've got some experience doing this. Don't you want to have me on? Their jobs, as I've told you, that, on our other broadcasts, those guys' jobs are on the line weekly. They got to draw ratings. They can't afford to have a first-time author on their show who's never done media before and freezes and results in a terrible segment, and that gets them in all kind of hot water. They don't want that. They're not going to take a chance on you, being that. So you need something you can send along, and the best thing you can send along is the local broadcast clip. So let's start with local media. It's doable. And that's the best counsel I give a lot of our self-published authors. They want to skip a lot of steps. It's not the way to go.
You got to build it up. You got to work your way up. It's almost like playing
That's
a video game where you got to start with the small bosses before you get to the large ones, right?
That's right. That's right.
What do people do who live in big media markets where their local station is like ABC New York or CBS Los Angeles or, Fox Chicago, where it's almost as competitive to get your book on those channels? Maybe not quite as competitive as the Today Show, but it's pretty competitive given the size and the advertisers that those stations have.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Ross. Same counsel. I mean, it's going to be a little tougher for you to break in Chicago or LA or New York than it is on, the Today Show or Fox and Friends, but still the same strategy. And I would even maybe get a little more granular. If you're in one of those markets, I'd say, pursue some podcasts. And particularly if it's a podcast that has, a YouTube, element where you can get some on-screen experience. You want to make sure that you're in the situation where you're asked a question you don't expect, and that the first time you're on the air, it's not one of those big opportunities. So it's not any different, counsel. It's just a little more challenging. And even in those markets, so you'd be surprised at how much more attainable those opportunities are than with the big national shows. And I mean, the big national shows, I'll tell you from experience, they scan their local affiliates for good stories. And if a local producer in one of those big markets, especially, were to reach out to one of their network partners, you got a great shot at landing one of those big shows. So same strategy, essentially. And what the book does, to circle all the way back to your original question, Dale, it provides people with the practical tools and the steps. You know, how do you build a great press kit? How do you write a great pitch? What do you do once you're booked? You know, how do I conduct a great interview? If I've never done this before, what are some basics? You know, what do I wear? How do I craft my messaging points? You know, what do I do after the interview's over? A lot of different steps involved. And that's what the book is in a nutshell. It's kind of a, you know, 101. How do I do this? What do I do? You know, and how do I maximize the opportunity once it's over?
Very good. So if there is one thing that you would say that some authors probably forget in preparation for one of these local media spots, what is that one mistake? Or if you've got a couple.
Well, there are
we
a
can
lot
go
of
ahead and go for
things.
that.
No, but I think the things that they overlook most often, you know, and is building some flexibility into their calendar, and making sure that you've got, can you get off work? You know, what if the local NBC affiliate calls you and wants you on their show tomorrow morning? Can you get off work? Who's going to watch the kids and take them to school? You know, what are you going to wear? Is that ironed and pressed and ready to go? You know, do you have any inventory? You know, is your book available? Do you have a copy you can take with you to the station? You got to literally be ready to, you know, in an hour or two's notice, to throw on some clothes, make sure everybody's taken care of, grab a book and walk out the door. Because when they call you, they've probably also already called a couple of other potential, you know, resources. Whoever says yes first is going to get the gig. You want to be able to say yes and say yes right away. So those are things you need to make sure you have, you know, taken care of before you ever start pitching media. That's probably the biggest mistake, is people go through all this trouble and they make this great pitch and, oh wow, I got an opportunity, and oh shoot, I can't get off work. I can't be there at 3:00. I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule? No, I mean, it's just, we've got someone else we can go to. They're not going to bend over backwards to make it work with you. So you got to make sure that you can say yes.
That's really awesome advice.
How important is the press release versus relationships and the clip that you have from a smaller station or what have you?
Yeah, it's really important. And honestly, Ross, I'd tell you that, you know, I haven't sent a press release in years. I think most of the producers that I work with, you know, a press release to them indicates a product, you know, or, you know, a general news announcement. What they're looking for is an email, something personal, saying, hey, here's who I am. Here's why I'm writing you. Here's why it's important for your audience. Do you need an expert or a resource? You know, a press release is just more of an announcement. It's less, to me, an opportunity or an invitation. And relationships are so important. I just think press releases are a bit outdated, unless, you know, I suppose they have their place. If you're General Motors and you have a big announcement company, why we're releasing this, you know, but if you're an author who's writing a book, your book as a local author is not news. So I wouldn't present it that way. And a press release says, hey, here's some news. And your book is not news to them now, nor never will it be, unless you are J.K. Rowling. Your book is not news. So that's
Very
it.
good.
That's the biggest difference.
So you set yourself more up as a subject matter expert then on what your book's about and how that feeds into the news cycle of maybe what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. And I say that, you know, so much. Dale's heard me say it so many times. Your book is not news. It's just not. Nobody cares that you wrote a book, except your mom, you know, your neighbor, your colleagues at work. Nobody cares. They only care because it's information that is beneficial to them in some particular way. What can I learn? What's my takeaway? How does it benefit me? You know, so that's the way you have to position it. These news outlets are in the business of providing relevant information to their audiences, not selling products. If that's what you want to do, they'll send you to the advertising department. You know, they're not interested in creating an infomercial for you. So if you watch the news, and you have to be a student of the news, you know, watch and you'll see, you know, these sound bites are short. You know, they ask you a question or two and you're out. Radio, you get 15 minutes, maybe 30 if you're lucky. Half of that time the host is talking, the other, you know, quarter of it is ad. So you're going to have 7 or 8 minutes. What do you want to say? Why is it important to my audience? They don't there's 3 million books at this point published every year, right, Dale? Is that the latest number?
I'm not sure, but that seems pretty accurate. Speaking of, Jason, we're starting to get to the end of your 10 minutes here. So,
oh man, wow, okay.
Yeah, it went by so fast, folks.
It does go fast. Yeah.
Go vote for Jason Jones, Landing Local Media. You can go to dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. We've got the link as per usual. Jason, thank you so much for your time today, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. This is fun and a perfect testament. Your time on the air goes fast. You got to know what you want to say, and you got to be ready. So get prepared, get the book. It'll tell you how to do it.
Thanks, Jason. It's great chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, moving right along. Our next guest is a Hall of Fame podcaster. I often talk about him as one of the most talented people to work in the podcasting industry. He runs the School of Podcasting. He also works with Podpage and hosts 12, 14, 17, 20. I can't keep track. Ask the Podcast Coach Saturday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Also look for the School of Podcasting. Those are the two big ones, but he's got a whole bunch of different podcasts. He's helped more podcasters than, I could imagine start and grow and monetize. His book is called Profit from Your Podcast. Right here, he is the great Dave Jackson. Dave, Hall of Fame podcaster, never gets old, does it?
The thing is, though, like I try to use that at like the grocery store.
It doesn't. You still have to pay.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. But yeah,
don't you know who I am?
It's like, and that thing's heavy to lug around. I'm like, that's well, I'll try.
It doesn't get you a table at the trending restaurant.
No, nothing. No groupies, nothing. So, but I'll take it.
That's why you had to learn to play guitar. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And I'm still humbled by that. And yeah, so it's and my business coach was like, why don't you say that you're in the Hall of Fame in your podcast? And I'm like, he's like, dude, how many people can say that? And I'm like, well, at the time it was like, I don't know, 14. He's like, you need to say that in every show you do. And I was like, okay.
So, what's interesting is I talked to you when the book first came out. I think it was in summer or fall of 2020 when the book came out. And the story continues because after working for Libsyn for quite a while, your podcast and your podcasting skills and knowledge and everything really led you to a totally new opportunity. I don't know whether you saw it coming or not, but your podcasting prowess definitely played a role. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Podpage and how being a podcaster makes it, the perfect fit for a job like that.
Well, that's the thing. Your podcast becomes your resume. And so at Podpage, I'm the head of podcasting. So I am doing things like I send out a newsletter. We're now offering live support calls. So if you're just stuck on something, instead of doing the whole like, what browser are you using? And then I say this, and then you say like, hey, let's just hop on a Zoom call for 15 minutes and get this taken care of. So I'm doing that. We're doing things for our elite members that can actually now, if they just want not so much Podpage support, but like help me with my podcast, that's another thing I'm doing. And that's what I love. I love to coach people. So between that and we're still working on, we're going to launch kind of a Podpage related podcast because, well, that makes sense. Right. And then I'll be doing videos soon for our new YouTube channel. So for me, and I always say there was nothing wrong with Libsyn. I was just, everything I just mentioned, I was doing less and less and less of. And so there's nothing wrong with Libsyn. This just sounded better. And back in 2020, I actually got hired by Brendan, the guy that the owner and main coder. And he wanted my opinion on what should we make this thing do? I have an idea. So it's been kind of fun because over the years, I have not been shy to go, oh, that's really cool. Oh, I'm not going to use that. And I've always just kind of been giving him feedback. And it just so happened that he happened to be at a time, he sent me a video. He was like, how's everything going at Libsyn? And it wasn't that I hated my job. He said, I've got this position over here. And everything he said about it, I was like, ooh, I want to do that. And so, after 8 years at Libsyn, I came over to Podpage, and it's still a lot of fun. I'm working with podcasters now directly, which I love, and I'm getting a whole different skill set. I'm learning much more about websites now, as you might imagine. And so it's been a lot of fun.
You know, Ross and Dave, it just occurred to me. I now remember, yeah, we did meet at Podfest back in 2020 because I switched to Libsyn. Sorry, Blueberry, but like at our conversation, it had convinced me to move over to Libsyn. So fantastic podcasting platform. I love them. They've been great to me and such. Hopefully you didn't leave because they turned terrible.
No, they're not at all.
Good.
I always tell people, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with Libsyn. I say it's the difference between chocolate ice cream and cookies and cream. Like for me, chocolate is great, but cookies and cream, I will pull over and walk a mile to get some. So that's my favorite.
I won't disagree with you on that one. There.
Yeah.
Cookies and cream. Come on now. But I would like to know, like when you went to put this together, obviously having this vast experience in podcasting, how were you able to, I don't know, distill all that information into a single book? And what was that whole process like? Did it take like years for you to put it together? Or was this something like you woke up, did it one day and was done?
Well, I had written a book called More Podcast Money, was like the very first version of this book. Okay. And then a publisher reached out because I realized I needed to rewrite it. And I started to do that. And this publisher reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in writing a book about podcast monetization? I was like, well, funny you should ask. I'm doing that right now. But even the original book, I remember I handed it into my first editor and they said, oh, this is great. Which one of these books did you want to write? And I go, no, that's the book. And he's like, no, You've got a planning your podcast book. You've got to grow your podcast book. You got this one on monetization. And I'm like, well, everybody wants to make money. Let's do that one. And so that's where I just kind of whittled it down. And then when I was writing the current version, Profit from Your Podcast, it's just a matter of like, okay, that's the main heading. Now let's answer that question. What are you going to talk about? So there are like 7 different ways you can make money with a podcast, and then some insights to that. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what I'm not going to talk about. Yeah. So there's still the first chapter is a hint that you can't monetize a podcast that's not any good, or we should say it's harder to monetize a show. So right. That's kind of where I went with that. But it was fun. My favorite part is I think in the first page, the preface or whatever, and I say, you never know what could happen in 2020. And people are like, I should have bought a lottery ticket. Because 2020 was a little different of a year.
It certainly was, for sure. So what did you end up doing with those extra like sections that you didn't have? Did you just throw them out, or do you have that kind of hanging on the back burner to hopefully release one day?
Yeah, I still have it. And it's one of those things where, especially now, I mean, that was probably 10 years ago, that I thought about the other day. I was like, I need to put those out in some form of a book. And I think this time I'll probably stick to self-publishing. Nothing against the publisher that helped me out, but I've seen both sides of the fence, and I'm a little more of a control freak. The fact that I can just update it and send it to Amazon, I'm good to go. But yeah, that's definitely in the works.
Super cool. It's very cool to be able to chat with you. Hall of Famer. You need to say it from now on. That's it. It's not just Dave Jackson. It's Hall of Famer Dave Jackson. So we would like for you to kind of push your book one more time here, because people need to vote for this inside the virtual book fair over at dalelinks.com/vote. So tell us real briefly again about your book here, Dave.
Yeah, if you're a podcaster and you're thinking, hey, I'm not making any money at this, and you actually want to make money with this, definitely check it out, Profit from Your Podcast. And the other reason why you should vote for it is it's honest. It's actual, here's what this person did, here's what they made kind of stuff. It's not one of these books where I'm going to say, for 3 easy payments, you can do, there's none of that nonsense going on. I'm not selling hope for 3 easy payments. In fact, at times I explain to people like, here's a stat you're not going to like, but it's the truth. So that's why you should vote for it. It's the truth.
Before we let you go, give us one quick tip that anybody, whether they're starting out or they're a veteran podcaster, should be doing or could be doing to increase the chance that they're monetizing.
Know who your audience is, because in the end, when you make money with a podcast, it's your audience is pulling out a credit card. Do you want them to give it to a sponsor who's going to give you a little bit of that, or do you want them to give it to you where you make more of that? But nonetheless, you have to know who your audience is, because it's their credit card that's going to be, the money that's coming your way. So the better you know your audience, the better you can give them what they want. The more you give them what they want, the more likely they are to go, hey, thanks for that. Here's some money.
That's Dave Jackson. He's a Hall of Fame podcaster. He is at the School of Podcasting, Podpage, and you can find his podcasts everywhere. Thanks, Dave, for spending some time with us.
Oh, thanks, guys. This is awesome.
All right, we move on to another guest that doesn't slow down. 4
Breakneck.
hours of live streaming, one after the other, superstars, all of them. We're going to bring on in just a second Nancy Ankowitz. She's an NYU career director and instructor.
And she's dancing in the background, man. I'm telling you, this is awesome. We know we're having a good time.
Business writing expert, published author multiple times. Her new book is Business Writing, Say More with Less. And here she is. Let's welcome Nancy Ankowitz. Nancy, how are you? You're on mute, I think.
Yep. Continue
There you
dancing.
That doesn't happen at least once a day. The day is not complete.
Exactly.
So your first, I want to mention your first book because it basically launched an industry of books about and by introverts, self-promotion for introverts. And then more recently, you've gotten into business writing, which is your specialty. Say more with less, master clarity, cut the fluff, and use AI to succeed. Tell us why now is the right time for a book on business writing.
Use AI to succeed. Everybody's doing it. Join the dance, but do it well and do it ethically. And I'll tie together, thank you, Ross, for mentioning my prior book, Self-Promotion for Introverts, The Quiet Guide to Getting Ahead. The two combine perfectly, because if you're an introvert, and I may seem extroverted, but I'm actually an introvert. I get my energy from my quiet time and my one-on-one conversations, that sort of thing. But if you're an introvert, you probably spend a lot of time at your keyboard. And if you're an extrovert, you probably need to spend time at your keyboard with a little bit of editing. So either way, this book is for you. How to write clearly and concisely is one of the things we're missing the most in our business world. People write on and on and on, and I'm not going to go on and on and on.
Well, when I was in school, I had to buy a copy of this book. And this was kind of like the Bible of, concise and clear writing. I don't think Mr. Strunk and Mr. White could have imagined that a business writing book would be talking about things like emailing and texting, let alone writing with AI and ChatGPT.
Yes, and they set the foundation for making every word count. And now we're just taking it to the new technologies to be today. So it's a perfect foundation, and they were an inspiration for me. My book is skinny like theirs. Says a lot with fewer words.
Very good. I started reading your book, and it was really, you obviously are walking the walk at this point. When did you find that because I'm sure every writer goes through this whole process of writing too heavily. At what point did you realize that you were probably doing too much and expressing too much when you could have just distilled it down to just what you're doing right now inside your book? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I write way too much, and I've got a strong inner critic saying, no, no, no. So I've learned to some degree to separate the writer and the editor, send the editor out for coffee when the writer is writing, and I'll write pages and pages and pages. And the editor comes in and then chop, chop, chop. You don't need that. You don't need that. Why do you need to say, hi, my name is Nancy? They already know it. You have a signature block in your email. There's so many things you can do to chop, 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 in my humble opinion. Who needs that? Why do I sound humble when I say that? I'm personally inviting you. Well, who am I to say I'm personally inviting you? So it's being real, being crisp, being concise, and yeah, write all you want, Dale, but chop, 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 chop.
That's the most fun part of the process. And I think my editor probably thinks I'm insane because anytime I get a manuscript back and I see a bunch of red lines on it, I'm like, yeah, we did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Way to go, editor.
From
You're
my
a pair. Yeah.
From my late teens to mid 20s, I wrote for newspapers, and I would fight with the editors over every word, even if it was like cutting a syllable or something so that it would fit in the column inches. I was like, no, that has a purpose. How dare you? Now, the amount that I slice is probably, more than half of what I write. Like, it's amazing how much you realize how irrelevant so many words can be to telling the story. Like Dale said, I think it's a process that you come to over time.
It is. You're both right. And Ross, if I can tell tales out of school, you and I have spent laugh out loud sessions co-writing, co-editing things with ChatGPT and giving it attitude and telling us what we think of it and cursing at it, whatever. No,
I'm not the only one who curses at it.
You didn't you understand my instructions? Can you do a little better?
It surprised me in the beginning that you so embraced ChatGPT rather than taking the avenue that so many took in the beginning, which was, I'm a serious writer, I'm a serious business communicator, and this is beneath me, or this is cheating, or this is unethical. And you really embraced it from the beginning. Why did you think it was okay or beneficial, or didn't diminish your achievements as a writer and communicator?
How many of you have typewriters? Get with the program. It was obvious to me, the writing was on the wall, that we had to do it, and we need to do it ethically. We need to do it in a sane way. I'm in a university environment. The students can write everything with ChatGPT in my classes as long as they use their brains. So it's here to stay. It's getting smarter and smarter. It's smarter than us and it's dumber than us. We can debate that. But the thing is, we need to use it. I use it as a collaborator, as a partner, as an unpaid assistant, or $20 a month, whatever it is. But I use it as an active thought partner, and I will always override it, at least in 2024. Talk to me in 2025 or 2035, and we shall see. But right now, I'm still the boss.
Well, tell us, for people who may not yet be convinced, and I don't know why they wouldn't be, tell us why they should get Business Writing, Say More with Less, and why they should vote for it over at ebook fairs. DaleLinks.com/vote, LivestreamUniverse.com/vote.
Oh.
Use either one.
You want the introvert to be a salesperson now.
Yes.
What's in it for you? What's in it for you is, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for clients, if you want advancement in your career, you need to sound good in writing. Sound good in writing. And to do that, less is more. My book is about less is more. So how to get every word to matter, to represent you authentically, and how to, boom, target your audience. That's what my book's about.
I freaking love it. That's so good. Everybody, please take your time. Go on over to dalelinks.com/vote. Cast your vote inside the virtual book fair. Selfishly, I'd love to take your vote, but in the same instance, Nancy brings up a very good argument. I feel like my vote's going to go over towards her at this point.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's great having you on the book again. Business Writing, Say More with Less. And this leads us, I think each interview we're doing segments so well to the next one, because we got warmed up talking about ChatGPT. Now we're going to talk to an author who puts it right out there. He created much of his book with ChatGPT or other AI tools. He's Larry Roberts. He's a fantastic podcaster, speaker, branding expert, works with Podfest and does their newsletter. He's everywhere, and he's really exploded in the last few years as a personality online and as a person sharing expertise around AI and content creation. Let's bring him on, the author of Under. the red hat, it is Mr. Larry Roberts. Larry,
What
great
is
to see
happening?
you.
Thank you so much for having me. What's up? My cousin Dale is here as well.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
this
glad
is
you said
great.
cousin instead of uncle. Then I
Yeah.
would have been like, what, dude?
No, not doing the uncle thing at all. No, I'm very cognizant of age.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, now that the family reunion is underway,
There we go.
tell us a little bit, for those who don't know, how this book came together, how you did it. I'm so jealous. You were like, oh, I did this in a few days or a few weeks or whatever. It was so fast. How did you generate a book using AI, and yet it still kind of sounds like I'm listening to Larry?
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's really been my focus as of late, is helping people get ChatGPT specifically to sound just like you. So that's one of my keynote talks. I'm actually doing it not tomorrow, but day after tomorrow over in Fort Worth as well for a big conference. And I've got several other gigs lined up over the next coming weeks that are doing that exact same thing. But this book came to life because of a failure on my part. So I had flown to San Diego to do a talk for Entrepreneurs Organization, and I was talking about generative AI and the power of AI. And the talk went well. And I come off stage and, EO, they do it right, man. So we had a little after party. We were all hanging out, and members were coming up to me going, man, I love the talk. Great job. I'd love to buy your book. I didn't have a book. I do have a book on podcasting that did okay back in the day, but this wasn't a book that was relevant to that audience. So I was very, very exposed in this, environment that just was not, it just wasn't a good experience for me personally. So I had another talk that was coming up in 3 or 4 weeks after that one. And I said, dude, I just cannot go to another one and be that exposed. So I came home, told my wife, and cried a little bit. And then I was like, dude, what are you doing? You're talking about the power of generative AI. Use ChatGPT to write a book. So that's exactly what I did. Is I sat down with ChatGPT, came up with some prompts that really allowed me to write a book that was relevant on two fronts. Because Ross, as you said, I do a lot in the branding arena as well. For whatever weird reason, this red hat makes me a branding expert. That's a totally different story. But I wanted to write a book about branding, but I wanted to use AI to do it. And I did that to demonstrate the power of AI, to show what you can do with AI, to show that you can write a book in your own voice, which is absolutely critical, using these AI tools, specifically, once again, ChatGPT. So that's exactly what I did. Ross, you held it up once, but I wrote Under the Red Hat because it is. And why did I call it Under the Red Hat? Well, that's where the brand is. This red hat, it's just a beacon. It's just an identifier. But my personal brand is everything that's under the red hat. So my goal was to write a book to talk about what your brand is and what personal branding is all about, and to understand that personal branding, it's really what's inside your logo, or underneath, in my case, my red hat. So, but again, I did it all with ChatGPT, knocked it out in about 3 weeks, got me a nice outline, dug into the chapters with ChatGPT. Now, I did write chapter 3 all by myself. So I'm super proud about that. And the reason I'm so proud about that is because this is kind of what a lot of people miss with AI content generation. Is AI still doesn't have that emotional intelligence. It still doesn't have that human factor. And in this case, ChatGPT had no idea what the hell a red hat was even all about. So I had to come in and I had to write the story of the red hat. Where did it come from? Why do I wear it? What does it mean? How has it helped me? There's no way that AI could have delivered my own personal stories, which so many authors want to deliver in their book. So I did have to step back, write that one all by myself. But the remaining 11 chapters, 100% AI.
Interesting. So with those other chapters, how much intervention did you put into that? Was it you spent a lot of time doing solid prompts, or did you just do the solid prompts and as soon as it gave you the output, you went and deeply edited it so that way it had some of your fingerprints on it?
Well, deeply is misused in this case because I didn't go too deep with any of my edits. In all honesty, my business partner Sarah Losi, she's a real author, and she went through and she read the output as well and helped me with some of the edits. But most of it came from the persona modeling I did on the front end before I actually started writing the book, and that's where I've really focused a lot of my we'll call it intense AI work is in that persona modeling. is making sure that ChatGPT, using custom instructions, using detailed prompts, using and leveraging memory that ChatGPT has now, using that functionality to make sure that ChatGPT was speaking through my voice and sounded very, very much like me straight through the entire process.
And it was pulling from your story, so to speak, like all the different things that you had fed ChatGPT for other projects and things it could pull from using memory.
To a certain degree. At the time that I wrote this book, memory wasn't a real big focus with ChatGPT, because I wrote this back around September of last year, maybe October, somewhere in that neighborhood. And at the time, we didn't have that memory function that was available to us. But what we did still have at that time was custom instructions. And anybody that has a ChatGPT account has access to these custom instructions. And what those are, there's 2 text boxes in the settings of your ChatGPT account. That top one is how ChatGPT knows about, what do you want ChatGPT to know about you? What do you do? What's your role? What's your profession? What's your business? What's your brand? All this information that's all about you. Then there's another text box that tells ChatGPT exactly how you want it to respond. Do you want it to respond professionally? Do you want it to respond more casually? Do you want bullet point type responses? Do you want storytelling based responses? So you have that opportunity to set up this persona for ChatGPT. And I did that prior to writing this particular book.
Very cool. This is wow. There's so much stuff that's going through my head. One of the things I love how you mentioned real author. I hear a lot of that.
Yeah, I get a lot of shit for that. Honestly, I mean, I get a lot of, and I work as a ghostwriter for some companies that are out there. Yeah. But I get a lot of flack for that, because they're like, well, we're using AI to do this. Can we copyright it? Can we trademark it? Is this actually our voice? But I want to make this clear, and I got into it with Jeffrey Hazlett, the former CEO of the C-Suite Network. I don't know if you've heard of the C-Suite Network, but Jeffrey and them, they just took over the Wall Street Journal's top bestseller list for authors. And I was actually on a panel when he was in the audience, and he goes, "Look, you're never going to be a best-selling author with an AI-driven book. It's just not going to happen." And that's how Jeffrey sounds. And the whole point here is that this book, I never wrote it to be a bestseller. This is little more than a credibility piece. Honestly, it demonstrated the power of AI. There's great information here about building a personal brand, but yes, there's no way you're ever going to find an AI, at least not at this stage of the game. You're not going to find an AI written book on the New York Times bestseller list. You could, and I know a lot of authors do this, they become Amazon #1 bestsellers. I could definitely take an AI-driven book and make it an Amazon #1 bestseller. Mm-hmm. But being on actual bestseller list at this stage of the game, not going to happen with an AI-driven book. But this is a glorified business card, is what this is. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to buy your book, you want to have that credibility, you want to establish yourself as a thought leader, you want to have that book. And you can do that within about 3 weeks. That's what we do now. We write a book in 2 to 3 weeks for our clients. And you have that in hand. I had author copies in my hand in 3 weeks when I wrote this one.
Nice. Well done.
Phenomenal.
Boy, I tell you, our time is going really, really fast. Ross, we just burned through an hour. Larry, we want you to go ahead and give one last plug here for your book and let people know why they should vote for it inside the virtual book fair.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again for having me. You should vote for it just because it demonstrates the progression of authorship, of writing. Granted, I only wrote chapter 3 here, but this is, in my personal, very selfish opinion, a great demonstration of what we can do with modern technology and modern tools at our fingertips. You never have to be exposed again. You never have to show up and go, "Hey, I'd love to buy your book," and not have a book. So it's right here. There's no excuses. I would love for you to vote for my book, Under the Red Hat, How to Stand Out in a Crowded Marketplace. And yeah, let's just use AI going forward.
Well, it's not only a good book, it's also a great business card, and it's really, really powerful branding.
And I got to tell you too, my thing real quick, I know we're running out of time, but I had to have a spine. My goal was, if I didn't have a spine on my book, it was a pamphlet. So I was able to build out my book with AI so that I could get that spine on there, because that was a critical component for me personally. I didn't want to write a pamphlet. I wanted a freaking book. So anyways,
a few pictures and appendices.
I may have came up with a prompt that said, "Hey, give me a quote from influencers that I may or may not have put in front of every chapter there, you can see the picture of the red hat. That's the quote page.
Genius.
Those got me my extra pages so I could get me my spine there.
Very nice.
Well done.
Thank you
Full
so
disclosure.
much. Book is Under the Red Hat. If you haven't seen it enough, it matches the man's branding, and it's Larry Roberts. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Larry.
guys.
Always great to spend some time with you.
Well, our next guest, boy, we're just rolling right along. Actually, I ended up connecting with her through Substack. And boy, as soon as we started chatting with each other, man, became best of friends. Her name is Angela Eureka Smith, and she actually put out a very interesting book called How to Be an Authortunist. And she actually does a great Substack every week where she curates and distills all the information that any author needs to know, the opportunities they need to have in front of them. So it's with great pleasure that I get to introduce Angela Eureka Smith. Angela, I really wish I could remember every last thing you do, because you're involved in a lot of things. Like, share a little bit more beyond just how we're going to talk about your book here in just a second here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most exciting is I'm the incoming HWA Horror Writers Association president, starting appropriately enough October 31st. So any of you horror writers out there, hit me up, because I'm going to be your girl. And we recently started a community through Mighty Networks for authortunists. And that has been amazing when you take the algorithms from the social media who wants us to stay in social media to feed their pockets, and you bring all of us out into our own community where we're actually working together and promoting without all the drama whipping us up. People are actually cool. I was starting to doubt that, but it's been really fun. So, and other than that, just, the usual, as you both know, busy, writing, what new project, like the squirrel of projects. Oh, let's do this. This is exciting. It's just keeping up with them all.
Well, you also manage a magazine as well, though, too. Am I correct?
Oh, right. Yeah. Speaking of the squirrel and all the projects. Yeah. Space and Time magazine. It's been around since 1966. I'm the third publisher. Yeah. A lot of people remember, that's the emails I get is, I remember reading this as a kid or a teenager. Claims to fame. I didn't start it, of course, in 1966. I wasn't here, but it was Gordon Linsner started it on a mimeograph machine in high school. And it has still lived. I swear, it's like the vampire of magazines. It has its own cognizance. It's a self-sustaining entity, but it has been awesome. We had like Kiss did, oh my gosh, now I can't remember his name. The lead singer of Kiss did artwork for it. Yeah, thank you. Is it? Yeah, anyways, he did artwork for the magazine when he was 13, and that's in like issue 4 or 5.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many
wasn't aware
little
of that.
nuggets like that. Yeah. That's one of the things I've been working on, speaking of the squirrel and the projects, is putting together a complete history of Space and Time magazine that you can, it's interactive. So you can go through, read the old copies. We 2 or 3 years to track down a scan of each copy, because I think we're on like 148 now. But so that's what I'm putting together now in that community. So it's been awesome.
Incredible. So tell me a little bit more about How to Be an Authortunist. Love the cover, by the way, and I love the name. Have you trademarked that yet?
I didn't, but because I just remembered that's on my list. No, it was my daughter actually did the cover. She's my graphic artist. So that is one of the best ways to get help, is to just have them and raise them to your specifications.
Yeah. Raise cover designers.
Yeah. I don't know where the accountant went. I swear I had one, but she did the cover. Honestly, there's a joke behind it. I did the first cover and the book didn't sell. And I am not a graphic artist. It was a terrible cover, but I liked it because it featured a raccoon, because I like raccoons. And when I was asked by certain people, why did you choose a raccoon? I was like, oh, because they're authortunists. I mean, they're opportunists, So yeah, that's great branding. And then, anyway, she did the cover immediately. With that cover, everybody started messaging me. Oh, I don't know, you didn't know you had this book. It's great. I bought a copy. It's, and it took off. With my cover, I was like, well, it's been sitting there since February, guys. I mean, remember the blue, the baby blue and the orange? I thought that was a great combination. What? So part of my advice is stick in your lane. Like what you're good at, stay there. Don't try to be a graphic artist if you're not a graphic artist. I mean, dabble for fun, but do what you're good at and make that traction.
Dale mentioned Substack when he introduced you, and I saw he was talking about your Substack on his podcast, and I subscribed right away because there aren't a lot of I think online publications that sum up that many different areas of opportunities. Talk a little bit about for first time or newer authors or people, or maybe longtime authors who really haven't connected with the community. What are some ways that they can start getting involved and finding opportunities out there?
Well, the first thing would be to go subscribe to Opportunities, and it is free. There's 2 weeks free, and then there's a paid 2 weeks ahead is the paid version. But wait 2 weeks, you can get that free too. I'm a terrible business person, but I do love what I'm doing.
Well, thanks for the tip, because it's
yeah.
it's about
Just
2
wait
weeks.
a week. It's only for the overachievers those extra 2 weeks. So, but there are so many. One of the things that I hear authors talk about a lot is, how can I get out there? How can I promote myself? It's so hard. It is as close as the open mic that is somewhere at a computer near you. And the trick is finding it, which is why I put together the newsletter. I came from the newspaper world way back in the day when those were a thing. And one of the tasks that I had was the community calendar. And I know it sounds very nerdy, and this is who I am, but I loved putting together the community news calendar, not newsletter, calendar. Back in the days, we called it the calendar. But it was seeing that was the most important feature of the weekly paper. This was a small town called Niceville. That's a real name. Only one in the world. But so many people loved that community newspaper calendar. That was the important part, because it connected them to the community. What's going on? We can't possibly know. You can belong to 1 million Facebook groups. You can Google till your fingers fall off. But you have two choices, I think, as an author. One is find all these things, find the submissions, find the contests, the award circuit, the open mics, the educational things like this, or you can subscribe to something that curates them for you, and then save that time for actually going and connecting and reading your poetry or your prose or whatever you want to perform, and making the submissions. Less time. That's the catchphrase is less time searching, more time submitting with Opportunities. So
it's incredible, the resources that you put out. I was just blown away, and I wish I'd found you a lot sooner, because me being in the position I am, I'm always trying to curate and deliver as much information to self-published authors as I can. So tripping over your Opportunities newsletter was huge. So what can we expect from How to Be an Authortunist? Is this going to be like a list of things to do, or is this kind of a step-by-step practical guide to finding those opportunities?
It's actually more of a how to think. And it comes from probably a decade of me teaching workshops and classes and guest posts, and then realizing that I'm saying the same thing over and over to different people. And so I kind of pulled it all together and put it in this one book. And it was just kind of my reader magnet, not really meant to be a great thing, that got me any kind of notoriety, except for then my daughter did the cover, and that's the end of that story. But so it's more, there are some just basic tools like using binaural beats. I don't know if you know what that is, free on YouTube, but yeah, they react with the as a non-scientist, I'm going to describe this, reacts with the way your brain waves work. And so you can use them for relaxation, sleeping. I use it for focus and creativity a lot. You can legit sit there and just have that time where you're like, I can't focus. I have this deadline. I can't do this. Put on the binaural beats. You do have to use headphones so that it, I guess, cements it into your brain better. But, and then like within 5 minutes, I'm there. I'm in the zone. It's like having the zone as close as just plugging in. So there's some tips like that in there that are just very practical. And then there's a lot in there about how to think. One of the things that I think media does this to us, tries to convince us we should all be alike. And perfect is boring. Perfect is forgotten. Line up a bunch of perfect Barbies And you're not going to remember which one is which. You don't want to be perfect. You want to be yourself. You want to be authentic. Not so bizarre that people can't digest you. But
I've been down that dusty road.
Yeah, so am I. That's why I'm like, but not that yourself, guys. You do have to have the
Angela,
mask.
we do have to start to wrap things up because we have to get into our next guests. This is your last second plea here. 5 seconds you've got to push how to be an authortunist and why people should vote for it in the virtual book fair.
Well, I just happen to have this. It's way more fun to vote for me than any of the political voting you might be able to do right now. This is the fun voting. You will not get in a fight
Less
with anybody which way you vote. But also just, I say vote for it because I am talking about how to be an authortunist. And opportunities is everywhere. It's for writers. It's also for anybody that's trying to get out there.
It's a great
Thank
concept.
you so much, Angela.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to go listen now. These are great interviews. Oh, and I'm doing a sequel to Larry Roberts' book, Under the Black Hat. So I just want to put that in there.
Well done.
It was already my title, Larry, back off.
There we go. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Angela.
All right. So we just keep moving on. Hour number 2
Yeah,
continues.
we have a double header coming up right here. The funny thing is, I thought there was a mistake. Like when I was like, hang on a second, did Eric put in 2 books here? And you're like, no, hang on a second, Dale. Let me explain it to you. So I want you to go ahead and explain our double header here for us, Ross.
Yeah. So each participant needed to have a book assigned to them. And so Eric and Stephanie co-wrote 2 books. So they're going to join us together and talk about both of those books. We're going to start with the newest one, which is Influencer Marketing. Both books are part of the Entrepreneur series published by Entrepreneur Magazine and their parent company. And they're phenomenal, and I can't wait to bring them on. Stephanie is a live video influencer, lights, camera, live. Eric might have as many books written as you do, Dale. I don't know, but he is super prolific. And I'm just thrilled that they're both here. Let's bring them on. Stephanie Garcia and Eric Butau.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. So tell us, we're going to start with the second book. So we'll save the real background story of the first book for that one. But tell us why you decided to write about influencer marketing and why you think that's an important topic right now for people in any kind of business.
Stephanie, I'll kick it off. Yeah, I think in this day and age where you have influencers across all different channels, whether you're a small business or a big brand, there isn't a way for you to captivate audiences and really give them more information about what it is that you're selling. And so the book behind influencer marketing, it's not just from a creator aspect, but also from a brand aspect too. And you're really trying to find the common denominator between both of those parties. So that way you could have a really thriving and strategic partnership.
What's the process that you went through when it comes to having multiple authors? I just did a book with Kevin Colby, and we had a very unique process. We wrote a book about video podcasting and basically wrote it as though we were podcasting. But what is your process in terms of, like, do you sit down and write together? Do you assign each other different parts? How do you do a book with multiple authors?
We assign different parts for different authors. So I'm usually the one who gets my stuff done first, and then I hand it off to other people, or Stephanie, or we, in case of just Stephanie and me working on the influencer marketing book, we just work on our different chapters at the same time.
Pretty much,
and then we
yeah.
just weave them together and send them off to our editor and hope he's happy.
What I love about working with Eric is, like, he definitely has, like, his process, like, his strengths for me that I see that I lack is very process oriented. He knows the structure, he knows the format. And then I'm just like, tell me where I gotta be, where I gotta show up, and I'll work my magic. Then boom, 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 we'll get it. And then I'll send it to him.
Yep.
So when you're going through and doing some of these edits, is there one person who manages the editing process? Like, is that you, Eric, or is that Stephanie, or how does that look?
I actually do some editing before I send it off to our project editor, so he or she can work on it. So it's a very straightforward process. I'm well trained, I guess you could say. I've been doing this since 2000, and I actually have a copy of my very first book that I wrote.
Holy
that's-
smokes!
That's old
Yeah,
school.
look at
That's
that.
how we used to learn how to use some
Wow.
programs.
So, yeah. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and the influencer marketing book was book number 47 for me. I think Stephanie, it's book number 2 for you, right?
Book number
Because
2, yeah.
you wrote, of course, Ultimate Guide to Social Media Marketing, and then the influencer marketing book, and then I'm working with Stephanie again on the 2nd edition of Ultimate Guide to Social Media Marketing.
Oh,
We've
nice.
got another writer on that one, yeah.
Yeah, we have, for the 2nd edition, we have Amanda Robinson, and we have
Roberto Blake.
Roberto Blake, yes.
Oh, nice. Roberto's a good guy.
Wow.
I like him.
Yeah.
So a lot of connections come together from the social media world. I mean, you're living what you're preaching in a sense by bringing in influencers like Roberto and Amanda. You're not only getting their expertise and their insights, but you're also getting benefit on the promotion side as well from their audiences and their outreach.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what I really appreciate about Amanda, like, I don't know if you guys know this about her, but she's an actual trainer for Meta. So I know that anything that she says about Meta, she's top tier. She knows exactly what she's talking about. Roberto Blake, he practically lives on YouTube. So any algorithm
Yeah.
changes, right? Like, there's not a day that I don't see him live. And so I trust their experiences and what they're going to add value to the book overall.
With this being a 2nd edition, are you doing like everything from scratch, or are you taking some of the stuff over from the 1st iteration to the 2nd edition?
We're taking some of it from the 1st edition over
Okay.
because when we wrote the 1st edition, we wanted to make it as evergreen as possible. So there's still a lot of great information from the 1st edition that we're porting over, but there are obviously updates. For example, Twitter is not Twitter anymore.
Yes.
So we have to, make some updates to, how we present certain information, and also adding information. I mean, Roberto is going to be adding a lot of good stuff on YouTube, and of course, Amanda has a lot of new stuff from Facebook. And naturally, Stephanie has all sorts of good stuff on influencer marketing that we're going to be bringing in.
How much of your live video background would you say you brought to all these different areas of social media and influencer marketing that you talk about?
I'd say all of it. It was one of those things where, like, am I really telling them all the things? Am I really giving them all the templates? Like, literally, it's I always tell people that you could take your live stream and you could repurpose it into digital confetti, spread it across the internet, goes back over there. But you could also take that knowledge and repackage it into bigger chunks of content, which would be the books, the workshops, the keynote talks, and all of that other stuff. And so for me, it was really nice to leverage all the years of live streaming, all the different interviews. Ross, I've been with you a couple of times too, and just update it. Like, what are some differences there? What still sticks? And I think a lot of times there's still those fundamentals when it comes to creating content. Like, just being a content creator, that is a mindset in and of itself.
Yeah. What would you say have been the most effective methods of promoting your books? Your books have gotten a lot of good attention out there. What would you say have been the most effective things for people who might be wondering, how do I go about promoting my book once it gets out there? Because the work certainly doesn't end once you hit the key for the last time.
Yeah, I think Eric and I, we do a really good job as far as preparing our virtual launch team. I mean, Ross, you have a chef's kiss with yours as well. I mean, there was a lot of it where I was just like, yeah, we should have our creative assets. We should have our suggested social media post. I think what was really nice too is we shifted over for the first book, we had a Facebook group. And so we were holding people accountable, and it was just like this group think of everyone just working together and being collaborative. These days, I think for this book, Eric and I, we both agreed. We were just like, wow, people don't really like that particular platform. Maybe we might want to shift our next virtual launch team to like a Slack or even a Discord. So I'm just sharing that with everyone else that are authors. Choose a platform where people are more willing to hang out there and be present, because Facebook was not the jam.
Yeah. And they don't really notify everybody anymore.
No, they don't. Yeah.
It's
It shifted completely. Yeah.
How did you build that team then, Stephanie?
I think so. Let's say for this book, for the influencer marketing, I wanted to target very specific business owners that would find this very helpful, because obviously they're going to get a PDF copy that they could read in advance. And then I also wanted to target agencies, because agencies also work with brands and the creators, and then creators themselves to be like, well, this is my take on it. And so Eric and I did a really good job as like curating different stories from creators, agencies, just brands too.
I think when I'm thinking about the first book and all the different authors, you guys had sounds like a really good chemistry, really good flow in working through the influencer marketing book. What were the challenges of working with so many people on the first book, and what were the good things that came out of it?
Well, obviously with the influencer marketing book, it was just me and Stephanie, so it was a bit easier. With the social media marketing book, we actually have different authors for the first edition than we're going to have for the second edition. We had Mike Alton and Jen Herman, along with Amanda and Stephanie for the first edition. So I actually worked through Mike. Mike was...
I think we lost Eric.
Eric might have frozen up.
Oh, not again.
Oh, now you're good. You're good.
Okay. I live in the Sierra foothills, so I've been having some drops on my internet connection.
It's almost like it mocked him.
Yeah, but I think you were gonna finish your thought too. Like Mike was pretty much like herding the cats when it came to Jen, myself, and Amanda. He was like the nice buffer. Then went over to Eric.
Yeah, Mike was my primary connection. For the second edition, I'm obviously the one who's herding cats, but I've actually decided, okay, who wants to take on the book next? Because with Entrepreneur Press, they use just one Word file for the entire book, so there aren't specific chapter files like you'll find in a dummies book. So I need to do my chapters first, and then I'm going to say, okay, who wants to work on it now? So Amanda has it now. And then once that's done, I'm keeping after her, and then I'll, figure out, does Stephanie want to work on it next, or does Roberto want to work on it next?
Oh, I saw Roberto over at Vid Summit. He's like, Stephanie, I got my whole thing. I was like, really? I was like, do you have the book, or does Amanda? He's like, was I supposed to wait? I was like, Roberto,
Classic Roberto.
I was like, is this a trilogy? I was like, what is this? No, but I just love how his brain he's always creating content, and he's always channeling that stuff out there. So I'm really kind of curious to see how that looks.
So, yeah, it looks like we're well on our way to getting the first draft done.
I'm trying to wrap my head around a single Word document, and everything takes place within that document, and only one person can work on it at a time.
Yep.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very big challenge. So how do you approach this, Eric? Like in the instance, like I'm sure deadlines have to be something that you probably put in place. What's the delicate way for you to approach that co-author and say, hey, I need your stuff yesterday?
I just, follow up with them every, week to 10 days and say, how's it going?
How's it going? All the things. I'll even say, I know that I'm in trouble when Eric starts like binge watching my Instagram stories and sends me a DM on Facebook. I'm like, like there's a whole pattern to it. I'm like, Eric is looking at my stuff. What am I doing?
You had time to do Instagram. You couldn't get the book done.
Why are you doing Instagram stories, Stephanie, when you should be writing your chapter? Yeah.
So did you find yourself getting late on a deadline at all, Stephanie, or was that not an issue for you?
Not an issue. I think so I know my motivation strategy, and my motivation strategy is like you have to check on me every now and then. It's not that I need to be micromanaged, but I just need to know that you care. That
That
you
little
care that I
nudge.
just a little like, hey, how you doing? Da, da, da. And I always find that to be super helpful. Otherwise, I'm just like, do they even know that we're supposed to have deadlines? Like, do I even exist, or do you have other priorities?
Okay.
So
I dropped out
what?
again. Sorry about that.
That no problem. What's working with Entrepreneur like, and do you work with other publishers as well?
I'm working primarily with Entrepreneur Press and Wiley, which does Dummies books right now. Those are the two most active publishers as far as turning out books on a regular basis. And Entrepreneur Press is definitely different than Wiley. Wiley has a much more structured system. There are issues with, I would say, let's just say the flow is different with Entrepreneur Press. It's something that I haven't dealt with before. The social media marketing book was the first one I worked on with them, and there were some interesting challenges there, but they also had a lot of editor turnover.
I think Eric froze, so I'm going to ask you a question that you probably know, Stephanie, the answer. Does Eric write as part of his work with the different presses? Is he always a writer on the book, or does he do like behind the scenes, consulting or, help with the publishing side of things?
He definitely helps with the. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
Yeah.
You feel free to answer
No,
about yourself.
Everyone is popping in and out. So I obviously do writing. I also do some editing and some work with the editors behind the scenes. I want to help both the authors and the editors to make sure that everything flows smoothly. So I'm kind of, I'd like to say a bit of like the spoken wheel, or it's not a spoke. I can't remember the name for it, but I want to be, that one central hub where, everybody is, going through and making sure that everybody is well taken care of on both ends.
Well, give us the pitch for both books. You can start with either one. I've got the influencer marketing book here, and you're going to have a new copy of social media marketing book coming out, although the first book is still very relevant. So give us your pitch. One of you do influencer marketing. One of you do social
I'll do
media marketing.
influencer if that's okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So, look, listen, if you're a small business and you're tired of being the best kept secret, you want to start working with influencers without burning a hole in your budget, this go-to guide is going to give you every single thing to go ahead and get started as far as figuring out which influencers to work with, how to work with them, how to price it, and how to actually make sure that you're getting ROI from your influencer marketing campaign. There's scripts, there's templates, there's all the things. It's basically our brain in a book at this point.
Nice. Yeah, and the same is true for the social media marketing book. Our brains are all in here, and there are plenty of examples and worksheets and additional resources and a full glossary. And it's, like you said, Ross, it's still very much relevant today. And the next edition is coming out sometime in the first half of next year.
It's so great to have you both on. Check out their books at the ebook fairs. Go to dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote and vote for Stephanie and Eric. Their books are great. And thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
So the
All
next
right.
guest, I don't know if we should let this guy in. I mean, have you even vetted this dude? I mean, literally, like, what is going on here? And on top of that, there's too much hair, way too much hair. All right.
I don't know anything about his book. I haven't even looked at it.
Nothing about his book, I'm sure, probably, but I'll bet you'll be able to give a good introduction. So I'm going to give you one shot here, Ross.
All right.
Give a good introduction on this next guy coming up here.
All right. Our next guest is a fast-growing YouTuber, and he focuses on people over 40 learning to do video and fulfilling their dreams of being creators. He's also an expert at live streaming and video production, and he happened to co-author a book with some other guy called Video Podcasting Made Easy, a step-by-step guide to creating and growing your video podcast. I even learned recently how to pronounce his name correctly, and I'm going to try. Kevin Colby.
There.
Did I get it?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I've only got a few minutes. I've got to do a couple of Uber deliveries after this. So if we can just kind of just cut to the chase.
Let's just get right to it, right?
All right. So you got this book here. Tell me about it, because I haven't had a chance to look at it at all.
Well, first of all, the co-author, goodness, what a prima donna to work with. Now, and
I've heard bad things about that guy.
Oh man, I tell you, people are watching this. They're like, dude, the guy looks like Willie's just a jerk. Now, Ross was my co-pilot and my co-host. Okay. So, but yeah, I got to tell you, and we share this in the book. It was Ross's idea. I wrote my first book, Live Streaming Made Easy, and Ross wrote the foreword for that. Didn't have a backup plan. So AI wasn't even around at that point for me to do a fake Ross to do the foreword. So he went for it. Ross has me on his show. He's asking me if you want to write another book. And I'm sure Dale gets this, having that you get bit with the bug of, I want to write more now.
True.
And so, I said, yeah. And then I said, I might do something about video podcasting. Ross says off the air, hey, you want to write it together? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And that led to our book.
Yeah, it was a fun project, and really, our creation of the book did not follow the traditional path of co-writing a book, whatever that path is. I don't really have any idea because I've never traveled it. Tell everybody from your point of view what it was like coming up with the content for the book and how we did that differently than probably. I don't know, any other co-authors I can think of.
Well, and again, kudos to you for having the idea to do it the way we did it. I think we both wanted to work together. And I mean, it's only my second book. So heck yeah. I mean, I love collaborations and working with other folks, but it's like, yeah, let's write this thing together. Mad respect for you. And it was like, yeah, but we don't really want to just like, all right, I'm going to write some stuff and I'll send you notes and you'll send me notes. And which I haven't, and this is the first time I've ever shared this with you, but I wasn't going to read anything you had sent. I was going to say, yeah, it looks great. So we might have done it faster, but you had the idea of like, what if we just like record it? Like, we come up with an outline and we're just kind of talking to each other because we've done this for a long time. And we're like, yeah, let's just give it a shot. And it was the first recording where it was like, okay, this is either going to work or nobody will ever know about the book. And it was like, okay, this is really good. We liked it. And then, the thing about kind of future thinking of projects as well. Now we also have the recordings that we can do an audiobook from that. I mean, we may have to add a little to it. We could do an online course. So, we kind of created it once, but now we have so many other things we can do from it. And, so who knows? I mean, we could even do a course about how we wrote the book.
So Dale, you weren't one of the authors of the book, so maybe you should ask a question that
it's true. It's probably getting difficult.
The rest
for you to
of the audience might want to ask.
Yeah, it's I tell you, doing that whole process of recording and on video, what was that process? And by the way, I'm asking this to Kevin because I know Ross can probably answer this easily as well. What was that process like of going from a video script down into a manuscript? Because obviously you guys probably weren't just throwing in a bunch of filler words because nobody says anything perfectly. A good example is me asking this question.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a great question. We did use AI to kind of, here's the beauty. So we have the transcripts. So let's take AI and let's see, if it can kind of condense it and clean it up. But then we even went through a lot of that and said, well, that didn't make any sense. And I think I said more here. So, and even Ross and I debated, did it save us time in the long run? Because we also didn't want to just put something out there, that got transcribed and just go, okay, slap a cover on it. It's a book. So it made us sometimes go back to the videos and kind of like, what was the conversation? That was a great point. I forgot about that, So it was very different. As much as I love writing, I'm very proud of both of these books. Video comes a lot easier for me. So that just turning on the camera, hitting record and talking it out was great. And then there were some times where it was like, okay, we probably should stop the recording now because this will never, ever make any public air anywhere. So, we had that too.
Yeah. Was there any extensive rewrites at all in certain sections where you felt like you could expand or even subtract some of the stuff that you put in there?
Yeah, there were a couple of chapters that I felt like, and I think Ross did too, not just me, that after kind of reading it, it's like, yeah, I think we've got more there. In fact, one time we actually went back to the video and it's like, yeah, there was a lot more there. And then as we were kind of passing back and forth the formatted version, it was like, I think we can beef this up a little bit here. Or I think maybe when you start looking at the print, it's like, I think we kind of beat that horse to death. Let's cut that out. But then we also saw some things in there. Well, let's add kind of a forward to the book about how we even got to this point. And then Ross added kind of more of an ending about kind of how we wrapped it up. And then, let's do a glossary just because you get so close to it. So yeah, there were several things like that. I feel like we were like, yeah, let's tweak a little bit more here, or cut a little bit more and just make it readable. And then you get so close to it. It's like, I think it's good. I think, we'll see.
I think the forward and the afterword were the only two things that we wrote. You wrote the forward. I wrote the afterword. Like traditional authors of a book would, like, we sat down and we wrote those.
Yeah, I actually
Everything
used
else.
quill. Yeah, I used a quill and dip it.
Quill, imagine.
Yeah. It took me 2.5 weeks just to write a paragraph. But it was a good experience.
But it looks beautiful. Too bad nobody will see that.
Well, that's my new book, Quill Writing Made Easy.
Yeah.
Quill writing made, that's beautiful. If someone is watching this, and is there any way that you can give like an overhead view of the actual process? What was the service that you used for recording the video, and what did you get for the transcript, and then what did you do for the transcript there? Obviously, I don't expect for you to go on a granular level, just
that's
the
fine.
overhead view.
Yeah. So we actually used StreamYard. It was, he and I have probably used every system out there, and it was just like, let's just jump into it. It's easy at this point. So we used StreamYard to record it, and which then gave us the tracks and everything and the transcript. That was huge. And then there were some couple of AI programs. We'll also have to talk a little bit more on the formatting of it. As far as the cover design that we actually did ourselves, just because we're, independently stubborn, we actually used and that was, I think that was pretty much the process. And then actually Final Cut Pro. So I took the recordings because we would record for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I took those into Final Cut Pro to kind of cut the chapters, if you will. And that's where we figured out, oh, wait a minute, this one mega chapter may be 2 chapters. And then from there, I think we dumped it into another system just so we could both have access to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I used Atticus for the formatting. There was the first time that I formatted a book myself. And it was a really interesting process. I learned a lot, and I got much faster at it because I helped somebody else do their book, and then I was much faster at it. But there was a pretty big learning curve trying to get things to look a certain way and realizing that the defaults aren't necessarily always what you want to go with. But it's a powerful, powerful program. And that was a really cool experience.
And the whole book was a collaboration. I mean, every part of it, even the cover, everything. I mean, it was a partnership from start to finish. And I think that even made it more enjoyable. I knew we would sell a copy, but regardless of how the book did, just the fact that, we started as friends, we stayed friends in it, and still friends. And just, to me, that made the world, made it, different.
Yeah.
Well, as we start to wrap up this little segment here, Kevin, obviously you're going to need to share your book, tell people why they should go ahead and vote for it. Ross, I just realized you just stacked the deck in your favor, didn't you? You got 2 books in this virtual fair. What the heck, man?
I would have been okay with one. I gave Kevin a choice which of his
did.
books he wanted to go with, and
did.
he said this one. So
I was so giddy. Here's the thing. I mean, video podcasting, it's not just a fad. I mean, it's here to stay because podcasting continues to grow, and then videos is just hot as well. Then you take YouTube has completely got in the video podcasting game, and now Spotify, I've just read that they're trying to even lure YouTubers over to be doing video there. There's never been a better time to just turn the camera on, turn the mic on, and be video podcasting. And the book is literally written for anybody that knew nothing about it or just knew a little and wanted to get started, that they could read it and go, okay, I think I know enough. Let's go.
Very good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Kevin. We both appreciate it. I gave you a hard time about the hair. I am full on jelly, as Kathy Fitz says. But thank you so much. People, make sure you go on over to dalelinks.com/vote and cast your vote. You have as many votes as you like. Actually, it's limited to a certain number, but go on over and vote for your preferred author. Boy, well, let's keep this victory train rolling here, Ross.
Yeah.
sounds good. Who's
Thanks,
up
guys.
next? Thank you, Kevin. Who's up next?
Well, I am just actually kind of giddy because this is one of my favorite people here. He is my hero in the business of self-publishing. This man founded Kobo Writing Life. He's been in the business since I was in high school. Sorry, Mark, I had to kind of say that. He started in the 90s. This dude has a wealth of knowledge, but yet he still went and got a degree in creative writing that had a specific purpose to publishing. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He now actually focuses as a consultant for Drafted Digital, a very major self-publishing company. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Mark Leslie Lefebvre.
Oh, Dale, you're just trying to be nice to me because we're in the Bald Club together.
That's it. Actually, that's it. Yeah, it's so great to actually have you here. And you and I were having this discussion, and you're such a prolific author. It was really hard to pick any one book, but it was funny. You were like, which one should we go with? And I was like, I like Wide for the Wind. That's probably one of my favorite ones to this day. So when you wrote Wide for the Wind, what was the whole process? Why did you do this? Because you'd already done Killing It with Kobo and a number of other books about self-publishing.
Yeah, actually, it was Aaron Wright's idea. Aaron Wright, who is the founder of Wide for the Wind, the Facebook group that's now, over 18,000 members long. She wanted to create a group because everyone talks about Amazon all the time. And she wanted a place where, you can get Amazon everywhere else. Let's talk about all the other places where you can make money. So Erin had reached out to me. She had read Killing It on Kobo. She loved the alliteration. She said, hey, I'm stealing your idea. I want to use this title. Do I have your blessing? And I said, oh my God, yes, please. And then about a year and a half later, she said, this book is too much. I can't. It was taken away from writing the romance that she was getting rich off of selling to her readers, and her readers were getting disappointed. So I said, and she was really apologetic. And I said, well, listen, I believe in it so much. Do you mind if I do the book instead? And so she wrote me the introduction. So the focus of Wide for the Win. I mean, and it is a company now. Aaron is our president, and there's a bunch of board members, et cetera. We actually founded it a few years ago. But the book and the mentality isn't just, or at least the way I've approached it from the beginning, isn't just Amazon versus the other 5 big retailers or 4 or 5 retailers. It's about being open to the possibilities of your books being available everywhere. That includes libraries. That includes subscription services. That includes what indie authors are really passionate about now, which is direct selling, having direct access to your consumers, to your fans, to that community of people. And again, you've got Patreon or Patreon, depending on how you want to pronounce it. You say tomato, I say tomato. You've got Kickstarters, you've got other funding, you've got story bundles, you've got so many other ways to earn money as an author. So Wide, I always spell Wide with all caps, like I'm shouting, because I have been shouting about the possibilities for all of us that exist globally.
Talk a little bit more about direct selling and what are some of the best ways for authors to go about doing that?
Well, I mean, I think Shopify, it starts with an S, it has an I at the end of it.
Yeah, it's close.
You Americans, all the language you use is so similar. I can't differentiate this Canadian. No, so Shopify makes it easy, right? They have the templates and stuff, but PayHip and Square, and there's so many, PayPal, there's so many different ways you can do it. The key thing, and of course, BookFunnel. Damon Courtney from BookFunnel makes it so easy to deliver content in so many different forms and guises and connect it to your direct sales, so you never have to worry about the customer service there. But I think so. The benefit there isn't just one of the wide for the win mentalities that Aaron had started was bank over rank. Yay! I'm excited. My book's #1 in a category on Amazon. But how much am I actually making? I mean, I just did some analytics for Draft to Digital that I gave to Jim Azevedo that he's going to be revealing at Novelist Think in Florida later this week. And it'll be on the Draft to Digital blog later. But it was an actual analysis of does free first in series still work? And I dug into, I think I filtered it down to the 50,000 top-selling series that were available through Draft to Digital, looking at the price of book 1 and the overall money that series made. And then I did a money per title, right? Because how do you differentiate that, right? It's like, well, a title could have 30 books in a series, and it only makes $500 per title, but another book only has 5, but it makes $3,000 per title in a given 12-month period. So anyways, looking at that analysis of the actual money coming in, and when you sell direct, you're keeping between 90 to 95%, depending on the processing fees, et cetera, and the services that you're using. You're keeping that. But more important than just the money, you're keeping that relationship with the customer. And that's the long-term sales. It's not looking at your dashboard today and how you're doing or looking at your ranking on a big retailer. It's, can this be something that can sustain me as a writer? And for myself, my income comes from traditional publishing, from various traditional publishers. It comes from sales to libraries and bookstores and retailers. It comes from Kickstarters and Patreon. And it also comes from going and doing direct sales, which I'm doing a significant amount of, particularly now that we're sort of back out of the pandemic.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, there's so much that I would love to just continue asking you, but I know we only have like a few minutes left. So let's kind of transition over to something that you do quite a bit. And I noticed it's co-authoring some books. What's that process like for you? Like, how is that? Because I mean, that's one of the things that we were just talking about with Ross and Kevin, but I want to know what it's like for you, because you're not just prolific on your own, you're prolific with other co-authors.
Yeah, you know what? When an author approaches me with an idea of working together, I always look at two heads are better than one. I mean, I've co-authored with Joanna Penn, with Maddie Dalrymple, who I think is coming up very shortly on the show,
She is.
as well as D.F. Hart. And again, we all have our specialties, and when we can bring our specialties together, we can work on it. I love the collaborative process. I love my co-authors always give me structure because I don't have any myself. Which is really good for me because I can learn from them. You know, Joanna Penn's the most amazing project manager to keep everything in line and on course. And the collaborations have been so unique, right? Some of it's been just recording YouTube videos, and there's our first draft of the transcript. But yeah, I think that collaboration can be really important because the other person can find things that you may have missed, and then you can kind of put the puzzle together independently, but then collaboratively.
Very, very cool. All right, Mark, we're starting to get down towards the last of our 10 minutes together here. So now it's time to go ahead and plug Wide for the Win. Share with people why they should vote for your book in the virtual book fair today.
I think we should vote for Wide for the Win because, I mean, there are so many amazing books in this, but this book is about mindset. And that mindset of Wide is going to open your mind to all the other amazing books from all the other fantastic guests you've had here. So that's just it. It sets you up for success with a winning mindset. And then, of course, you can go and enjoy all the other books from all the other great guests.
Man, Mark, you did so you should have been in pro wrestling. Like literally you just cut a promo. I feel like he's getting ready to go into battle for his life. So that is fantastic, Mark. You're always you're just exemplary in everything that you do. I definitely would love to bring you back to my channel so we can spend a little bit more time than like 10 minutes to go ahead and chat about your latest books and maybe your upcoming ones as well. So thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mark.
So, Ross, we got to send people on over to dalelinks.com/vote. And of course, Live Stream Universe. Is it Live Stream Universe or is it live streaming? Yes, it's
Live Stream
Universe.
livestreamuniverse.com/vote.
Man, this guy is such a legend. He shows up on here just casual as can be, modest and humble as possible. This dude founded a freaking company. Like, does anybody realize that? And this is just amazing. Like, but yeah, I love me some Mark Leslie Lefebvre. But we've got another guest coming up. I can't keep on bloviating about, one of my favorite things here.
Well, our next guest is someone who runs a digital marketing agency called Tintero Creative. She's an author, she's a speaker, she's a podcaster, and funny, from reading her book recently, I found out she was also trained as an architect. So I don't know what the heck she's doing in the world of social media, but she went there and she's applying those skills in a good way. But she's got a great book. It's called We're All Ears. I have to ask if that's her dog actually on the cover or not. But let's bring her on, the great Valerie Morris. Welcome, Valerie.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the big takeaway from reading your book was that you were an architect.
Oh, well, that's the marketing takeaway that you took.
Now, actually, one of the big takeaways is what I really like about your book from a writing perspective is one of the things I always tell Dale that I like about his books, and that is the stories you share make a big impact. It's not just how to do something, but through your stories, it's how to think about things, and it's memorable, and the examples you give. Talk a little bit about the process of putting the book together and, how you chose what to kind of pull in and what to leave out, because it's such a broad topic, and I think you did a great job with it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it stemmed honestly from telling clients in my agency work year after year, time after time, about all of the things that they should be focusing on, and how do we actually get the word out about their brand and all this stuff. So yeah, it made sense to put it in a book. And the stories I have found are what are differentiating you from the competition. I can't tell you how many people ask me about my silly goats, because they'll hear me tell a story about how I've got these goats with white curly hair, and I mean, who has goats with white curly hair? Nobody does.
Who has goats?
Who has goats? Yeah. So it's those memorable pieces that allow you to be sticky with people, and you don't necessarily have to have a crazy background or whatever. But sharing those stories helps give that personal touch. People can connect with the fact that, oh, I grew up on a farm too, or I have an architecture background as well, and thanks to the Great Recession got pushed out of the industry. There's so many different reasons that people will want to connect with you, and when you share those tidbits about your background and even your current life story, people connect with that, and it's going to showcase some things subconsciously or consciously about who you are as a person. Someone who's gone through architecture school knows what all is involved in that. They understand the right brain, left brain. They can totally understand how you make the jump from architecture into the marketing space. It makes sense if you've gone through school there. To somebody else, I might have to explain how much art and graphic design and presentation work is done in the process, which was my, foot in the door in the marketing space, and then right place, right time for social media. The rest is history from there. But, somebody that's experienced that themselves, they know it. They understand it. You don't have to explain it. So stories are extremely powerful. And I think they make things more interesting too. Who wants to get lectured about marketing tactics? You get that all over the place. But when there's some fun story associated with it, you can understand the analogy. And I think as AI becomes more and more of a thing in today's world, story is just going to become even more powerful.
I'm seeing you're working more with authors as well, and helping them with the publishing industry. Tell us about how you got started doing that and how that's going.
Yeah, well, Years was really the kickstart for that. Honestly, I launched that, and it launched so successfully that I had people in my marketing community and my marketing network come to me and say, hey, my client's got a book that they're launching. Do you think you could help them? Or I've got a book. Do you think you could give me some advice? Or could you do what you did for your book for mine? And so really, like, because I was so involved in the process of self-publishing my own book, and I essentially reverse engineered the process because I wanted to know, I have within my team and within my own skill set, I have the capability to format my book, to design a cover, to, get things in the right formats they need for the self-publishing piece. I could reverse engineer the process of how do we go after bestseller? How do we gain reviews? All of those things that a lot of authors, it feels so cloudy and confusing. And I was able to take the marketing principles that I've put in my agency work for how many years now, almost 18 years at this point, and apply them to the publishing space. It was like, well, we're launching a book, but it's kind of like launching an e-course or like launching another product for, an online store. A lot of the same marketing principles can be applied to the book launch process. There are definitely some nuances when it comes to like publishing and, ISBN numbers and all the technical logistics of books, but marketing it's very similar. And so it kind of was a side hustle for many years. And then in the last few years, I've realized I really love working with authors, and more people are coming to me for the help. So it's become more than just the, random side hustle project that would pop up here and there. And it's, we're working with authors on a regular basis now.
Did you ever think you would find yourself in that position, especially since you have the background in architecture?
As a kid, one of my favorite things was the American Girl magazine. I was from that millennial generation there. I'm an older millennial. And I loved magazines as a kid. And so I always thought it'd be fun to like make a magazine or like work on a team of editors or whatever to make the magazine and create the content. And so like seeing now in the digital space, I'm creating content for clients all day long, making a book, it's all content. I loved it back then and I still love it now. So it is kind of fun to look back at things from earlier in life and realize, oh yeah, those things were popping up all along. I might have detoured and done something different for a while, but as somebody with lots of interests, it is fun to see those things percolate back up.
So is this your dog on the cover?
I don't know, but I have a dog, and I have a great picture of a dog where his ears are now like pointed straight up, and he's like jumping up towards me. We got a puppy shortly after I put the book out. So maybe I'll do like the second edition and put my dog Cash on the cover, because he's literally all ears. He's got these like bionic border collie ears that stick straight up. So yeah, no, we are a dog loving house, but I do not own a basset hound at the moment.
Are you planning another book or a second edition, or are you too busy working with so many authors and their launches?
I feel that.
I do. I've got one book right now that's probably a third of the way finished, and I think I'm still living the book. So I don't think it's quite ready to finish the manuscript yet. And I'm sure other authors can relate to that. They're still in the mud of it, and I'm okay with that. I've got 2 young kids. I'm running my agency. Life is busy right now, and I think there's something to be said for just like this is where I'm at now. But I also am a big fan of like I've got a whole document where I document my stories as things come to mind. When I do have the inspiration to write, I write, so that I don't lose the ideas. And I think there's something really powerful about that.
All right, final pitch for your book. It's called We're All Ears, How to Increase Your Impact, Influence, and Success Online in a Noisy World.
I'd love for people to vote for it on the book fair. I think it's a great resource. It's got a lot of practical information. Like whenever I share, when I'm speaking on things or presenting to groups, I'm all about giving tangible advice that people can actually go take and use. So if you're looking for something that's going to help you move the needle, We're All Ears. Great resource for you.
Awesome. And great way to close it out with the book title.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Well, man, we're moving right along. Dalelinks.com/vote. Folks, go over, cast your vote and such. And by the way, this whole broadcast is brought to you by the fine folks over at ebookfairs.com. Go ahead and get yourself access to it, whether as a reader or as an author. It's a very invaluable tool. Good news, Ross. I actually was just texting with our good boy, Kenny Myers. He's actually going to be appearing at 4:40. He's going to take the last slot of the day. So he actually will make it. Unfortunately, we're something lost in communication, but he will be here. But before that happens, I've got a really good friend of mine that actually is coming up here. She's actually the host of the Indie Author Podcast, has interviewed hundreds of authors. And more recently, she just worked with one of my other heroes in the business, Michael Aron of Author Level Up, and putting together a book from page to platform, how to succeed as an author speaker. So without any further ado, let's welcome to the stage, Maddie Dalrymple. Maddie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm alive and kicking. I tell you, you're on vacation right now. What are you doing?
I couldn't pass this up. This sounded like so much fun.
We're very good. I know Michael initially was going to be able to do it, but then you came in and you're like, you know what? I'll go ahead and handle this and such. So we have all these co-authors. I feel like I'm like next year. That's it. I'm co-authoring a book with somebody. So that way we have this virtual event and I've got somebody else to work with me. But Maddie, what was the process of you and Michael working together? How did you broach that subject?
Well, we were both presenting at a Writer's Digest conference, independently presenting, and we had gotten together at the end of a long day, and we were having dinner and talking about war stories and tips and tricks and pitfalls we'd fallen into and gotten ourselves out of related to being an author speaker. And at the end of that conversation, we both said, hey, you know what? I think we have enough here for a book, and the rest is this.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
You're chopping up just a little bit. My apologies if I'm a little bit delayed. But so when you had all this stuff kind of put together, how did you manage that project? Did you guys just take it chapter by chapter, or was it one of those cases that you wrote a chapter, sent it over to Michael, had him kind of write a little bit more of the chapter? What was that process like for you?
Well, we started out just collecting ideas, and we did that in Google Docs. We were just both brain dumping content into the Google Doc, and then once we had it all in there and sort of arranged the way we liked it, we moved it over to Word. And then we had a very stringent process we used where we used an aviation analogy. Usually I'm all about the nautical metaphors, but an aviation analogy of taking control of the plane. So based on a couple of years of taking flying lessons, there was this concept that if you want to pass control of the plane, there's this, I have the plane, you have the plane, I have the plane. And we kind of generalized that to the book. We were very careful to say, you own the Word document, I own the Word document, you own the Word document, so we weren't stepping on each other. And so at that point, we were more at sort of the smoothing it out stage. And then we would just pass the document back and forth and edit the other person's work, incorporate the edits the other person had made on our work.
You know, you hear a lot about people saying, once you write your book, it'll open the doors to so many speaking opportunities. That may be true, but they don't just come knocking on your door just because you publish a book or 4 or 5. How do you recommend that authors, new authors who haven't gotten into the speaking game?
I fear that my vacation home internet may not be so up for this. So I apologize if I'm losing you a little bit, and I know you're losing me a little bit.
Let me try. I'll try and make the question quick. Somebody becomes an author. How do they go about getting speaking gigs? Because they don't just knock on your door. How would you recommend they go about doing that?
Well, it is true that they don't come knocking at your door without some work, but I also believe that having a book is a great entree to speaking engagements. It's this automatic proof that you have studied a topic, you know about it, you've given it thought, you've organized your thoughts around it. And so being able to go to someone and say, I'd like to speak on this topic, and guess what? I have a book about it, is great for them because you've already provided the proof that you know what you're talking about. And it's great for you because it's a great opportunity to market that book. And I would say that for myself, for a lot of So I've now written 3 nonfiction books, and for each of those, one on short fiction, which I co-authored with the lovely Mark Lefebvre, who was just up, one on podcasting for authors, and the book I co-authored with Michael, From Page to Platform. I have made more money from the speaking engagements I've gotten as a result of having that on my resume than I have from sales of the books themselves. So it can definitely be a really valuable additional stream of income for authors.
That speaks volumes. When you're talking about speaking engagements, I feel like we're repeating ourselves here, Maddie, because I just interviewed you a few days ago. But when you're going into speaking engagements, are we just talking strictly being on stage, or is this more of like all inclusive of other engagements?
Yeah, we really hit every kind of scenario where a person is on a stage, virtual or actual, and they're using their spoken word to engage an audience. And so that not only includes the kind of standard, I'm up in front of a group with a PowerPoint presentation at a conference kind of talk, but things like podcast interviews, author readings. I mean, I think events like this would qualify, panel discussions. They're all great ways to connect with an audience, build a following, build a network of people, not only the audience, but your other presenters, other participants. And there are, each of those offers pros and cons. For example, in-person versus virtual. If you, one of the first things we advise people to do is fully understand their goals for their speaking career. So if your goal is to maximize the financial benefits, then there can be a real benefit to doing virtual events because you're relieved of a lot of the expenses, including your time that would otherwise go into that. If you love to travel, and that's a perfectly legitimate reason to pursue speaking engagements, then virtual engagements are not going to do it for you. You're going to want to be going for in person, but there's really a whole spectrum, and different ones will meet different people's needs depending on their goals.
That's good stuff. If you were looking at getting a paid speaking gig, let's say I want to get to the level that Maddie is, where she's making more money from speaking engagements than she is from the books. How do I get to that position? Is that something I can just jump right into, or is this something that you just have gradually increased as time's gone on?
For me, it's something I gradually increased, and I think that's probably true for a lot of authors. I think that if you're a celebrity already, you can probably jump right in and be asking for money. But I think for most people who don't already have that celebrity, then building it up, perhaps initially through unpaid engagements, even if your long-term goal is earning money. Maybe you have to rack up some entries on your resume by doing pro bono talks. Those might be at a library. I think a lot of authors, even if they normally charge for talks, will do free or discounted talks for libraries. And then, it's a community, as with many other things in the author life, and word will spread. The people who see you at one venue will be enthusiastic about recommending you to people they know who are organizing other events. So it can really be a virtuous cycle when you get your name out there as someone who is interested in speaking engagements.
So it's all about getting the reps in first and then working your way up to those paid speaking engagements. Is there a certain expectation we should set for authors? Are they going to make like $100 for, like, let's say an in-person event, or $1,000 or $10,000? Is there an actual dollar amount here?
Well, this is one of these ones where Michael and I both say in the book, we know you, the reader, would love us to be able to provide a number, and we really can't. And it takes some experimentation. You're going to have some event where someone asks you for your rate, and you say a number, and either they laugh or they are too enthusiastic, which means maybe you've underbid yourself a little bit, or you're close. So you have some room for negotiation. I think that experience is the best guide, and also just being upfront with the people who may approach you. Don't have a conversation with them about doing an event until you've established that, yes, this is something you want to be paid for. And sometimes they'll throw the number out first. It's always handy for the other person to offer the number. There's a little negotiating basic for you.
Well,
and
our
the
time
other
has.
tip I'll say. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I want to wrap up because I want to honor everybody's time here. You and I can spend an hour and a half talking with each other. My apologies to interrupt you. Maddie, now's the time. Let's go ahead and pitch your book to the audience and why they should go ahead and vote for it.
Well, thank you, Dale and Ross, so much for the invitation. And I would love for people to vote for From Page to Platform, How to Succeed as an Author Speaker, which I co-authored with Michael Laron. I think it's a great option because it offers an alternative other than the written word for sharing your voice with the world. And it also offers a lot of other benefits like tips for expanding your community through speaking engagements.
Very
That's
good,
great.
folks. Go and vote. DaleLinks.com/vote. Maddie, you are a gem. Please do me a favor. Go and enjoy your vacation. I'm so glad that you spent a little bit of time with us today. And tell your husband, thank you so much for lending you, because you've been here for about like 20, 30 minutes now. You were hanging out in the green room, I noticed.
Yeah. It was
Thank you
been great.
so
Thank
much,
you so
Maddie.
much.
Great to
Thank
talk
you.
to you. All right, so we're 12 guests in, Dale. Just getting warmed up here. Lucky number 13 on the way. It's going to be Louise McDonald. She is selloonsocial.media, just talented social media creator and marketer and strategist, author, speaker. Got one of the hottest marketing podcasts in Ireland. So let's head out across the pond and talk to the author of Social Media Content Planner and Guide. It's the 2024 edition for coaches, consultants, and online experts. Welcome, Louise McDonald.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Ross and Dale.
Hey, it's great to see you. So, how long? It's what's it, about 4 or 5 years now you've been doing the planner?
Yeah, exactly. So since 2019. So yeah, so I bring out an annual planner and guide because, as you know, social media is always changing. And the whole idea of the planner is to make it easy for people to show up week in, week out with social media content, which actually has an impact and helps them achieve their goals.
Well, one of the things that stands out, of course, is that there's no shortage of topics and things to talk about. Where do you come up with all the different events and days and themes and everything across an entire year?
Yeah, so the planner is kind of broken up into 4 kind of sections. So the first section is a guide. So for what we don't want is people showing up on social media just creating content, because just creating content is not a strategy. And ticking a box to say, yes, I'm on social media doesn't mean it's going to be effective. Okay. So the first section is like a workbook, and so it asks you very specific questions to get you thinking in a very specific way so that your message is helping you achieve your business goals, but it's also persuasive. So that is like the first section of the planner. The second section of the planner then are all these special days. Okay, so today is like the 17th the 17th of September. I should have had this ready. So you probably get there faster than me. So the 17th of September is International Country Music Day. So again, like, the whole idea of the special days is like there's one or more than one for every day of the year. And the whole idea is that if you plan in advance, and if, let's say, that particular day means something to you or your brand. So like, even if you're a successful coach or consultant, but you like to sing and you want to share that on your social media, or let's say tomorrow is National Cheeseburger Day, maybe you're a nutritionist and maybe you can share a recipe for a healthy cheeseburger, so the whole idea is that the prompts just give you the inspiration to show up week in, week out. And if you're planning in advance, you get you have the time to be very strategic about how you're going to show up. So there's a prompt for every single day of the year. And that's why I bring it out every year, because every year the prompts change. And the whole idea is that if you're using the prompts on the day that everybody else is searching for content about that prompt, well, you're going to get more visibility. The third part of the planner then is like, I have free resources. So to kind of back up the teachings within the planner. So there's over $377 worth of free resources there. And the fourth part then is like a diary. So you can like write in and plan. And I like to write everything down. So that's the planner. And it's just a really, really useful tool to help you show up week in, week out.
What's the production like for you when you're putting together one of these? Because obviously there's a lot of work that goes into this.
Yeah, there is a lot of work. So like every year, like because as you know, Dale, social media is always changing. So I'm trying to, and like there's huge changes, like even between this year and next year now. So like my whole goal is that I'm just helping people be on the ball. So because I live and breathe social media, I have an agency, I have a coaching academy. I'm talking all day, every day about social media. Ross asked me how do I keep ahead of the curve? It's because I'm in it. And so I recognize that like everybody else, social media isn't their job. Like if you're a coach or consultant, it's just a little small part of your job. So writing the guide, I'm always so mindful to only have the right content. I don't want to overload people. And I must tell you, Dale, that the checking of the days and the double checking and the treble checking is a huge amount of work. So I get my team, I get one of my team to do it like twice over. Then I get somebody else of my team to check it. Then before it goes out the door, I check it. Then we send it off to the designer, and then we have to check that they have put everything in that we asked them to check. And then so we like it's checked and checked and checked, because the last thing I want is that someone says, you got that wrong.
Oh yeah.
That would be a nightmare for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what would you say is the one tool that helps you double check some of those things? Are you like just verbally reading that stuff out loud? Are you doing text to speech? Is there a specific program that you're using?
So we have to check if the dates are accurate by literally checking them online. So like all the days that you have that are in the planner, you could go and search every single day and every single week and look for them. What we've just tried to do is put them conveniently in the one location. And within the free resources that you get along with the planner, there is like a Google sheet with a Google planning sheet with all the dates built in. And like we use this, like we this template that we use it every single day in our agency to help us plan our content. It's super useful. And like people don't realize, like the special days, you're not going to use them all the time, but you might find 3 or 4 special days in the month that are really, really relevant to what you're doing. Or let's say that you had like a launch coming up, or you had a special event coming up. You can be really strategic about, what's happening on the special days. I know I've had somebody a few years ago, and they were into like sustainability and the environment, and they were planning a big launch. And I said, hang off. If you do it a week later, it's actually on a really relevant day where people, and like you'll find even the people in the like on the TV, at the radio stations, they're looking for content relevant to those special days on that day. So she was able to just change her launch and like got way more visibility just by being a little bit smarter about it, and tuning into what was happening around her. So that's the whole idea of the planner. It's just to make it easy and convenient, and so that that basically it's not hard. It's just you've got it there at your fingertips.
I feel like, Ross, we have a great 1-2 punch here, because she's speaking about something like what Jason was talking about earlier, and finding the right opportunity to advertise and promote what you have. And this is great. Like, I already know by this point, Louise, I'm probably, as soon as we're off here, I'm just going to order your planner because I need it.
One of the things that stands out also is that I have the paperback version, and it's in full color. And you don't see that a lot. What made you decide to do that? And does it cost a lot more for the printing and all that on your end in order to put out a book? I assume through KDP, because I bought it on Amazon.
Yeah, it does actually. The first year I did it, Ross, it was in black and white with just sections of it in color, and I hated it. I honest to goodness, I was like, I can't stand over this. This is not me. I want something that if I'm going to use it every single day, that I like to open it and I like to write in it, and the grayscale just didn't do it for me. So as a result, like I still sell it at the same price. I just make less money on it, but I'm happier, and I'm happier that it's me and I stand over it. So yeah, great question.
So last question, we only have about a minute left. I want to ask you, because you gave such a great pitch for your book before, is where does the social media expert you are actually show up or enjoy showing up for her own social media accounts?
Oh, you see, I have this love-hate relationship with social media. Like, I actually love it because I use it strategically. It does annoy me quite a lot of the time. But to answer your question, I love hanging out on LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn under Louise McDonald. But I also love hanging out on Instagram and Facebook. And TikTok. You'll find me under Sal on Social M. That's my company name. But yeah, so I love all the different channels for lots of different reasons. I think from a business perspective, I love LinkedIn for myself, for B2B. A lot of my clients we're very active Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Well, Louise, the book is excellent. You've already sold Dale. You sold me, obviously. I'm holding one. It's the 2024 Social Media Content Planner and Guide for Coaches, Consultants, and Online Experts. And it's Louise McDonald, and check her out on LinkedIn and everywhere else on social media. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you so much.
All right. Louise is awesome. That was so good. And went by some of these interviews go by so quickly.
It does. And I hopefully everybody's not like, oh my gosh, they just got done talking to one person, they're going to the next person. It just becomes overwhelming. But I think this transition over to this next guest is going to be relatively easy, but I'm not going to introduce him because then it seems like
that would be
narcissist. Weird. Yeah, it'd just be weird. This next guest, he's a handsome guy. He's wrote over 50 books inside nonfiction. Oh Lord, I'll leave it up to you, Rob.
He's an award-winning author. He's got more bestsellers than I can count. He's in the middle of a series right now called the Self-Publishing with Dale series. And I have all three of the books, although I have most of them in the online version, the Kindle version, although I do have the first book in, but fortunately you've got the book right there. Advertising for books or advertising for authors, advertising for books, right?
Yep, it is advertising for books. It was funny. We actually had this conversation after I get.
Oh yeah, I was trying to tell you you should call it advertising for authors, and then that stuck in my head.
Right. And it's so funny because you weren't the only one, because everybody was looking at, okay, we got to kind of keep it linear, where it's like four authors, because it was self-publishing for new authors, and there was advanced self-publishing for authors. So then people were like, shouldn't it be advertising for authors? I'm like, well, you're not advertising authors, you're advertising the books. And my editor even said, she goes, shouldn't that be advertising for authors? I was like, really? You now? You went through this book like 5 times and you're telling me you didn't notice that?
Advertising for authors, so that's for them to learn about advertising.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I was thinking 4 books, so that's why it ended up being 4 books. I know
that's what you're truly are advertising your book. And I guess you could probably talk about this. I think it's an interesting angle. You said a guide to promoting and selling with the largest online bookseller. Yeah. Now, what could that be, and why don't we mention them in the subtitle?
The good reason why I didn't mention Amazon was I actually had permission to use them in my Amazon self-publisher series. They were like, look, if we've got problems, we'll let you know. But the problem I ran into was earlier this year, I went to run a video ad through Amazon advertising and they blocked it. They were like, no good. And I was like, oh crap. Well, according to the rules and guidelines, you can't advertise anything with the Amazon name in it. They feel that it is misleading. And I totally understand that, because at this point, someone's going to look at the ad and go, oh, this is by Amazon, so it has to be okay. So I was like, oh, kind of did one of those numbers. And prior to me launching this series, I was already planning on like not having Amazon in the names, but because I just didn't want to go back and ask for permission, because it was a whole thing for the first series that I did. So then it made it a lot easier for me, and knowing, okay, I don't want to put Amazon in here. Not to mention there are a number of books out called Amazon advertising for books and Amazon advertising for authors, Amazon ads for authors, things like that. I was like, you know what? Let me just strip this down, and then people can kind of fill in the blank, and they'll look at the description and go, oh, this is about Amazon advertising. Great, we're good. I imagine eventually I'll probably expand that to include other advertising outside of Amazon. But for now, I feel like this is a fairly, it's going to probably take you a couple hours to get through, because it's not like it's like the most fascinating read in the world. Be like, impressions and click-throughs. Like, it's great. Please don't get me wrong. My book doesn't suck by any stretch, but it's not something you're going to be able to sit and read on a toilet,
It's not quite as fast to read as some of the other books in your series, because this is one where it's more technical, right? And you want to actually, the anecdotes and stories aren't enough. You actually have to understand a little bit about what it takes. And I obviously in 5 minutes, we don't have time to go into a deep dive. But what's the first thing somebody should know about running ads on Amazon as they're dipping their toe in the water? Just have an understanding of what they're getting into.
Yeah. With Amazon advertising, I hear this thrown all around a lot. Amazon ads don't work. No, that's absolutely untrue. It's way false. Like, no. Amazon advertising works for everybody. And unfortunately, it won't work for some if they don't know what they're doing. And that's why I put together this book. So that way someone could take their time, go through this, and understand some of the processes that have brought me in tens of thousands of dollars in revenue without having to lose my whole, life savings and bank account. Because Lord knows I've been in that position before, and I'm not going into it. But I think the biggest misconception is not even so much that people think that it doesn't work for them, but they believe that they can just throw money at the problem and it will work. Now, you can't just throw money. Well, you can if you want to, but I think it'd be silly for you just to throw money over at Amazon and go advertise my book. It doesn't work that way. You are still very much in control of how the ad's going to perform. So one of the biggest things I say, and this regards any type of premium advertising, do not invest any money into this that you're not willing to lose, because advertising, I hate to say this, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. You're going to put it in front of some people and they're going to go, yay, I want to get that book. But for a vast majority of people you're going to put it in front of, they're going to go, not now. I'm good. So just understand that when you go into this, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And part of that learning curve involves investing in it. And so you want to start low, scale slow. So don't start it out going $1,000 per day. Don't start it out going $100 per day. Start it out as low as $10. Heck, you can even go embarrassingly low if you want to at $1 per day. So that way you just learn the process. But just understand, the less that you do invest in it, the less it's going to return. So it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I'm going to put $1 per day in this because Dale said so, and I'm going to be banking some mad money here. Yeah, you're going to probably put $1 in and possibly get $1 or $2 out. Possibly. That's if you know the system's right.
So you definitely need this book. You definitely need a guide to getting started. And then once you do, there's a lot of trial and error involved, right? I mean, it starts to become specific to your niche and your book. And but I think a lot of people downplay how important ads can be. I have not, just being totally transparent, I have not gotten into ads yet, but this is something I really want to learn. So I'm excited about this book, and I think a lot of authors could benefit from learning about advertising on Amazon. It isn't the same as running a Facebook ad or
much easier.
social. Yeah. So, but you have to know some of the basics, and like Dale said, be willing to lose a little bit in the beginning to gain in the long run. So, before you do your final pitch, because basically, I'm sold. I think a lot of people are sold on it.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to do 10 books in 10 months or whatever your insane process is again?
I tell you, it'll probably it's a 12-book series right now. I have it wrapping up on June will be the 12th part. It'll be about email marketing. Part of the final 3 is going to be the second edition of the Amazon Self-Publisher series. I'm stripping the name Amazon and I'm revising those editions so that way it puts it all together. But as soon as those 12 books are done, my very last step is going to be a Kickstarter campaign in July 2025 where I'm going to release the omnibus. So that means that people will be able to buy the entire box set. And it's going to be very unique. It's going to be a very cool thing. But I'll be straight up honest here with you that after that 12th book and technically the 13th launch, I will be taking an extensive leave from writing nonfiction books because this is like being on a roller coaster. Yeah, sure, it's fun. But then after a few months, you're kind of going, can I get off? It becomes a bit overwhelming. And that's where I'm at right now. And my heart is in fiction writing. I do nonfiction writing. I've been doing it for the past decade now. But in 2022, I spent an entire year working with a writing coach, all for the purpose of pivoting to fiction. Because as a boy, as a child, I wanted to get into writing fiction. Like Stephen King was my hero. I wanted to write horror stories just as well as he did. And we're getting there. We're getting there. So I anticipate that, eventually I will be meeting up with one of our previous guests, Angela Eureka Smith. She's, in charge of, the Horror Writers Association. So I'm going to be definitely inside that space. Am I going anywhere? No, I'm going to continue still doing my YouTube brand, talking about self-publishing. But will I write more of these books about self-publishing or writing? Probably not. I'm going to take an extended hiatus.
You earned it.
Yeah, for sure. But that's me bloviating, folks. I like winning. All right. I'm just not going to even lie to you here at this point. So your vote is going to go a long way to making my ego feel at least a little better here. So go over, vote for my title, Advertising for Books. And at the very least, if you don't vote for my title, go pick up a copy over at every fine major online retailer. You'll be able to get all the details over at dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. Ross, I think we're supposed to have another guest, but maybe something's happening. So where are we at so far right now, man?
So we do have a guest from 3:30 to 3:40. Perhaps something came up. So let's just recap real quick. If you're just joining us,
yeah,
you missed some great authors.
Oh, gosh,
definitely want to go back and catch them on the replay. We talked to B. Smith, Be Inspired. We talked to Jason Jones, Landing Local Media, Dave Jackson, Hall of Fame podcaster, Profit from Your Podcast, Nancy Ankowitz, Business Writing, Say More with Less, Larry Roberts, Under the Red Hat, Strategies to Stand Out in a Crowded Marketplace, Angela Eureka Smith, easy for me to say, Angela Eureka Smith. She was fantastic. How to Be an Author-tunist. Stephanie Garcia and Eric Butow talked about the Ultimate Guide to Influencer Marketing and the Ultimate Guide to Social Media Marketing, both on Entrepreneur Press. We had Kevin Colby talked about some book called Video Podcasting Made Easy, a step-by-step guide to creating and growing your video podcast. Mark Leslie Lefevre, did I pronounce that correctly?
Lefevre.
Lefevre.
He's your fave.
Mark Leslie Lefevre.
Don't worry, everybody butchers his name. I think he actually even wrote a song once. I'm not even kidding. He wrote a song to teach you how to pronounce it. So ever since I've remembered, it's Lefevre. Because he's my fave.
Mark Leslie Lefevre. Wide for the Win, Strategies to Sell Globally via Multiple Platforms and Forge Your Own Path to Success. Valerie Morris, We're All Ears. Maddie Dalrymple, From Page to Platform, How to Succeed as an Author Speaker. Louise McDonald with the 2024 Social Media Planner and Guide. And then some fella named Dale Roberts with Advertising for Books. Not advertising for authors, but advertising for books. A guide to promoting and selling with the art largest online bookseller, whoever that might be. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody
First
knows.
person with an idea, throw it in the chat. See if you can.
Hey, I tell you what, there actually was a couple of questions that popped in
Yeah, let's
here,
say
and
hello to the people in the
my
chat.
apologies that I didn't get to some folks. I know normally everybody's used to me just pausing and kind of saying things, but obviously
Yeah.
with guests, we have our attention on them. But Kathy Fitt brings up one. How do you know something should go into a podcast? So there you go. Ross, you're my podcasting expert here.
How do I know something should go into a podcast? I don't know, because I do most of mine off the top of my head, so and I don't edit. So if it goes in, it goes in. If
It happens.
doesn't,
It's live
it
because we're on.
doesn't. But I mean, you have to think about your audience and whether what you're doing is of interest, if it's appropriate, if it's you know, who you're trying to reach, what is appropriate for them, what they're interested in, and then if you bring on guests, are the guests talking to things that are of interest to that audience? Do they add something, and does it help you build a relationship as the one who's the kind of the conduit from the guest and the topics to your audience?
So true, because you don't want to get it to where you're bringing on guests and you're exchanging recipes if nobody has any interest in it. So for instance, this live broadcast, we're talking about each of their books and how that relates to them and the audience that's watching. So yeah, you want to make sure that that is dialed in for sure, Kathy. But for me, whenever I'm planning out my podcast, I typically have an outline with some bullet points. I never really script too much. And sure, I might mess up some stuff, but I'm kind of like Ross, that you're just going to get whatever I have, warts and all. You're going to get the raw, content. And I actually learned this, and I'm not sure if I told you this before, Ross, where I'm a huge fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He actually has his own podcast, and I would listen to his podcasts and they wouldn't edit out any of his stuff where he would just mess up. And I'm like, I like that. I don't want this super polished thing. I want to feel like I'm sitting down having a conversation, but that's just my take on things, So
good question.
Excellent question for sure. But boy, we are cooking on the front burner. Let's hit one more question here because we do have our next guest in the green room, and I'm super excited to kind of jump into the very next one. But here we have, what's the best way to relaunch a book that's been out for 2 years that has plateaued in sales? Is ads the only way to revive sales? You know what, Ross? I'm going to quiz you. I want to see, what would you do if you started seeing a dip in your sales for your books? What would you end up doing?
I'm going to say it depends, because is it an evergreen topic or not? Perhaps you caught a moment with a topic that was hot for a while, and then that topic is no longer relevant to a wide audience. Let's assume that isn't the case.
Yeah.
I would look at, what you're doing to promote the book and market the book, because one of the things that, I learned from following Dale's content is that people put a book out, they do their launch, they get real excited, and then at some point they kind of run out of gas and stop marketing and promoting the book, and so it doesn't get in front of people. But there are other things you can do. Look at your book cover. Perhaps, you did your own book cover, and that was great when you had the momentum of the launch. But now perhaps you can upgrade the level of the book cover, maybe farm it out to a professional and see if that can't make a difference. Look at your description. Are you using all the things on the sales page on Amazon where you could add images, you could add A+ content, you could add editorial reviews? Are you getting reviews from people who've already read it? And then are you distributing outside of Amazon? And that's both, using a service like we talked about, Draft to Digital, but it also could be, are you including links to the book on your YouTube videos if you're doing YouTube, or wherever you are you making it known that you have a book? Are you talking about the book? So I don't know the relationship to ads and reviving sales. I'm sure it can do some, but I'm going to let the professor here correct my my essay.
There is absolutely nothing I'm going to correct about that. You nailed it on the head. If anything, I would just simplify it and say that, like, hey, if you've got something that's doing really good, the one thing is your excitement and enthusiasm needs to be the same as day one as it is on day 1000. You need to be able to be very confident with what you're putting forward. So if you've lost some of that momentum and excitement that you had initially upon launch, think about that relaunch, having a new cover design, a good book description, and maybe even add an extra chapter in there as a second edition. But that is all great information. I'm so glad that you asked that question, Andrew. My apologies if we didn't get to the questions. If you do have more questions, we'll try to get it at the very end of this full session, because boy, we have, gosh, quite a few other people left. It looks like half dozen. Yeah, about 6 or 7 more people to go. So our next guest, Ross.
Our next guest is an author. What a shock, right? Aren't they all
right?
Authors?
Yeah, exactly.
But she's also a coach. She is a terrific speaker, live streamer, podcaster. She's done sort of everything in the online creator space without being super of that space. She's a coach and an author and a speaker, I would say, first and foremost, and maybe more than anything, a community builder. Her book is called Hilda, Tackle Your Inner Naysayer, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Unleash Your Bad Assery. Jenny Mustafa Julak. Welcome, Jenny.
Hey, hello.
Hey, it's great to see
so
you.
Much fun watching you introduce me and try to explain what the hell I do. That was awesome.
Trying to make it up off the top of my head.
Like, she does like a lot of things, but like not the right way, but like the right way, but it's cool. I love it. Hi.
Hey.
Great title with the badassery in it. You don't even have to say anything. Just the title alone.
This was fun. Buy my book. Bye.
So I know the answer to this question, but most people watching probably don't. Who is this Hilda, and how did she earn a spot as the primary title of your book?
Yes. So, one moment, please. Dog, I'm talking here.
Hey.
Yeah. You wait your turn.
We're on video. Come on.
What the hell? Okay, so this is Hilda, who allegedly looks like the chick who tortured me in high school, allegedly. And she is the name I give for that voice who lives in the back of your brain who tells you suck. Now, her name was not Hilda because I had to protect the
guilty.
Yeah, exactly. So Hilda is the name that I give to that silly, irksome inner critic that lives in your brain and is decidedly on a mission to keep you stuck and safe and stifled and make sure you never do anything really great. And if you will just listen to her happy nonsense, you'll never fail again. You'll never succeed again, but she's okay with that too. And I feel like it's really important that, I don't know if you've heard that coaching can be fun and funny and not so darn serious. So that is kind of in a nutshell what my work is about.
This sounds really cool. You have baked some of your backstory into something like this. How were you able to do that tightrope walk of addressing that childhood trauma, if you will, without putting yourself into court or getting sued by somebody?
Fair. So it is not a biography of that broad, and I didn't use her name. Let's be real. However, it is a kind of personal book in that I am client zero of my work, right? Like I'm the first person that has had to go through the same things. We talk about Hilda and the 4 different versions of Hilda, right? I can't Hilda. I don't want to Hilda. I shouldn't Hilda, and I don't know Hilda. Like these 4 different BS beliefs of Hilda that I've experienced at different points in my life where I feel like I have all the self-doubt and I can't do these things, or I should or shouldn't do these things because I'm trying to keep everybody happy, or I don't know what I want and I'm second guessing myself like crazy, or I don't really want to because like I washed my hair Tuesday. Isn't that enough? You know, like all of those things that I think a lot of us go through when we're trying to do big, scary, audacious, exciting things. I've been there, done that, literally wrote the book about it, and captured my stories as well as my clients' stories, my friends' stories of people who are like, you know, I just don't want to let that cartoon character who lives in my brain win anymore.
And so just thinking positively and visualizing it manifesting itself.
Did you just M-word me? He just M-worded me. I don't M-word.
It isn't enough, you're saying. that you actually have to take action to quiet that inner critic.
Look, I know that in the coaching world, they have already taken away my toaster oven because I don't use the manifesting word all the time. And I know that we can talk about our limiting beliefs and all the other BS that every other coach in the world talks about, that the rest of us go, la, 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 that's so boring. I don't even know what they're talking about. They're talking in some psychobabble. It doesn't make any sense. My work is about adding some humor and adding a way to talk about these things with real words. Like, I don't know. I don't want to. Those kinds of words, not I have a limiting beliefs and I'm trying to unlock my inner child crap, right? Like, it's not to put that down too harsh. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you want that, just Google. There's a gajillion people that will take your money, right? There's a gajillion people. Like 17 people became a coach that do that work in the time it took me to construct this sentence. So like, you're set. You're totally set. For me, what we want to do is to stop ignoring this voice. So in all seriousness, Ross, a lot of people, when they talk about the inner critic, they say, just don't listen to that noise. And that's gaslighting. That's not helpful because that noise is in our head and it makes us feel like, oh, well, if that noise is in my head, there must be something wrong with me. I'm actually here saying the opposite. I think the fact that Hilda is loud is good news. It sucks, but it's good news. It means you're onto something that matters because Hilda doesn't bother if it doesn't matter. So she's showing up to give you a hard time because you're doing something that matters to you. So I want to help make sure that you keep going.
Is she ever right?
Yes. And I hate that. Unfortunately, sometimes Hilda's right. Sometimes you really don't want to. Sometimes you really don't feel like it. Sometimes people are going to judge you for putting yourselves out there. You're right. Like we've had that experiences of like, I don't want to put my things out there because I'm so afraid that somebody out there is going to judge me. And then 10 minutes later, here comes a drive-by editor with their digital red pen to point out that you put the wrong there because you finally put something. We've been there. Dale, you probably had this with your books where it's like, I would like to point out that you have mistakes in your book. I'm like, keep going. You'll find another one.
You mean less, not fewer. Oh, God.
Oh,
yes.
Yes. That's so cute. Kiss my typos, people. I'm too busy making things happen.
Oh my gosh, Jenny, why haven't I talked to you sooner?
I don't know. I'm so glad to meet you, though.
This is fantastic. Why Hilda? Why Hilda? It seems like such a random name. Was this something that you had always labeled that, or was it when you were sitting down writing and go, ha, I like that name. That person sounds like a Hilda.
It's a really great question. First, I don't know anybody named Hilda, so it seemed safe at the time. Now, since then, as you can imagine, the book came out 6 years ago. I've met some people named Hilda. They're not happy with me, so they get to call theirs Jenny, and now we're even, right? But that was part of it. The other thing is it just seemed like a ridiculous, mean kind of name of somebody that made sense to me. And I think it's because my uncle was a drag queen, too. And so we called him Auntie Myrna. And so I had these old lady names in my head, and so Hilda came out.
Hilda. Oh my gosh, that's tremendous.
Thank you.
You know, I still remember when you were putting this book together and how much of it you actually did transparently out there on live streams. Would you ever use the live streaming process to write a book again?
Probably in a different way. So yes, Ross was there back in the Blab days. Who remembers Blab? Like, you know, all 10 minutes of it. Blab had its moment. And during the Blab days is when I was writing the book. And I actually wrote big chunks of the book by saying, hey, I have this section that I'm trying to figure out. And I'm wondering, I don't want it to just be my story. That gets really old really fast. I'm wondering if there's other people here who have had this problem where Hilda is messing with your relationships. Or let's have a conversation about if Hilda is messing around with your ability to ask for an opportunity. And we would just host these Blab conversations. They were live streams kind of like this, but in a slightly more closed perspective. And it was incredible what people were willing to share. And then as soon as they did, I would be like, can I put that on the record? And there's lots and lots of those stories in the book. To answer your question, I don't know if I would use... Well, no, that's not fair. I think I would use live streaming, but not so publicly. I want to do like a YouTube live and invite the entire world because here come all of those, you know, drive-by editors we talked about. Yeah. But in my community, I could absolutely see this being a really valuable way to develop the next book that we're working on, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up about live streaming the writing process. And see, I've done that a number of times, and every single time before I go into it, I'm like, I don't need an editor. If you want to follow along, you want to read it, that's fine. But just understand this is a first draft. It's going to be ugly. It's going to have some mistakes. It's going to have the wrong there and there or there. Or for that matter, I might have used fewer instead of less, or less instead of fewer.
I have a client right now that just got crap for using the word judgment wrong, like spelling it with or without the E. And
gosh.
Right. Like she's like, talk about getting judgment about judgment. Like it just gets ridiculous. But given the nature of like what I'm literally talking about, which is that inner voice that didn't just make the shiz up, she got it from somewhere, the inner voice that's repeating what she's picked up from the outer voice, that are all just trying to keep you small. I have to demonstrate, like, we don't want to keep it small. So fun story. I have an audiobook. I'm very proud of it. So if you're enjoying this and you're like, she's funny, I will read the book to you on Audible, people. I'll read it to you. It's hysterical on 3 times speed. But there's 2 different mistakes in the book. When people get to the first one, that mistake I left in there intentionally, because when I was putting it together, I actually said to the producer, I'm like, can I re-record that? I kind of got in my own head. And given what the book is about, I just thought that was hysterical. And you would be amazed at how many people send me these really polite emails, like going, I'm so sorry, but I got to let you know there's a mistake in your audiobook. And again, keep reading. You'll find the next one.
You're like, I know.
But it's also great that like all these people are actually listening.
Correct. I think it's great news. And that's how I know that my book is still reverberating. Because again, Russ, you were there at the beginning, and my goal was to have this book give me 5 years of thought leadership. And we're on 6. So we're doing okay.
Well, congratulations. It's
you.
a great book. And it's Hilda, Tackle Your Inner Naysayer, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Unleash Your Bad Assery. Love my copy. Yay. And you can vote for that. Where can they vote, Dale?
They can go over to dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. You know what would probably help, Jenny? You got to bring the dog in the frame. Dogs will sell every single time.
Oh, yeah.
Sadie,
oh, yeah.
Look at this adorable dog in my home, our little Airstream. I know, that's our 4-pound Sadie. That does help.
Cutie.
That does help.
Thanks,
you so
Jenny.
much. This was great.
It was so much fun.
Well, our next guest, I tell you what, this is probably going to be an easy one. I met him, gosh, a good number of years ago, and he is now on his 4th volume of 100 predictions and live streaming. And gosh darn it, let's see here. Hang on. Give me just a second. I wasn't fully prepared. Now I'm prepared because I've got 1. I've got 2. I've got 3, and then this year is 4 for live streaming and digital media predictions right here. The one, the only, the prolific live streamer, the GOAT, as I would say, of live streaming, Ross Brand. Welcome to the show, buddy.
That is some introduction. Oh, wow.
I know.
I think I got to go back and re-record yours.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Well, you know, gosh, let's just jump right into things, because you are on your 4th year and you just got bit by the bug. You did, for the first time, 2 books in a single year. First of all, why are you crazy? And why did you decide to do 2 books in a single year?
It's really all your fault, because you made this seem so exciting and possible and interesting that, you know, with each book I learned more. And as I learned more, more of what you talk about in your podcasts and your shows and your newsletter starts to make sense. It's like, oh, okay, because I'm not just up against deadlines and I'm not just trying to get it done and get the book out. Like, I'm starting to understand how the process works from a wider viewpoint now. And like I said, I totally enjoyed doing the book with Kevin. It was really cool to do a book with just one other person. And now I'm starting the 5th book, sent out invitations and looking for contributors to the 5th book, which will be out by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy to think I will be contributing to the 5th volume as per usual. I love going back through some of these predictions. Like, for instance, I was very bullish about Twitch at one point or another. No hate on Twitch, because we're obviously streaming right now, but I don't have the same love for them that I did back then, because I had a lot of hope for them. But, this is really neat because it's almost like a yearbook. And I feel like there's everybody's signatures inside this yearbook. They kind of share a little bit about themselves and that specific moment in time. So this is a really neat process. But how are you getting over 100, not just 100, you're doing over 100 contributors in a single book? What is that process like for you? Because I'm already my anxiety's through the roof just thinking about bringing 2 or 3 people onto a book.
Well, it's gotten better over the years. I started out by literally like Facebook messaging 10 people and then like, here's 5 more. And then like, let me send out 20 and what, and I would just message one-on-one to everybody and ask them to send me, I found forms, and forms are really good because you can send out an email to a whole group of people and then you can give them a link. They can enter their prediction and you're not spending half your time going back and a deadline. And so getting organized was the key, Dale. And having a single repository where everybody would be putting their predictions. And then obviously having done it before, I now have a basic idea of what the book is going to look like. But it's still, it's 100 something predictions to read through and edit, because it's gotta, it's gotta fit. And the one thing I'm thinking of doing differently this year, based on a review or 2 that I got, was people may want the book chapters to be organized thematically.
Do you think that that's going to make it harder for you then?
No. Because I put in the questionnaire where people are submitting their predictions, choose which topic your prediction is primarily about, and I can group them that way, or I can not. I can go, okay, well, thanks for the feedback, but maybe it's better this way. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see it that way, but you have a YouTube, podcasting, live streaming, publishing. You could have different, so people who are interested in one area can know exactly where to go, rather than the chapter sections just being named predictions.
Right, they're having to just kind of open up randomly. It's like, I just want to learn about podcasting, Ross. I don't want to hear about YouTube. I don't want to hear about Twitter. I want to go right to the stuff. Yeah, I imagine that will add a little bit of complexity, but knowing you're able to organize and put it all together. Do you think that volume 5 might be your last one? Because it seems almost like there's some finality to things here with this project.
Well, it's the 10th year I've done the predictions.
Wow. So you've got 5 years prior.
5 years as a blog. And then during the pandemic, I was like, well, now the whole world is using these digital tools like, audio, video, and live streaming and Zoom calls and all this stuff. So there's an interest broader than just doing it sort of a blog for industry folks. But I do want to do some more books like the video podcasting book that are evergreen, and that and I want to focus on developing myself as a writer and as an author. So I don't know whether I'm going to do this forever or not. It's been 10 years. It's been really cool. I mean, it's a great way to stay in touch with people, because sometimes some people who have been part of my network, it's the time that I reach out to them again and stay in touch. And, it's been, some people have been in, I got 3 people who've been in all 10, but I've got, or will be in all 10, but, the cast changes over the years, and that's kind of cool too.
It's really neat. Yeah. Cause you've had just this interesting list of various influencers and celebrities. Just the mere fact that 100 people altogether is impressive, but now 100 experts and people within their fields that are very highly respected, the Dave Jacksons of the world, if you will, the Dale Robertses of the world, if you will.
Yes,
this is pretty amazing. And I think it speaks volumes to your ability to do networking. So my question would be is, if someone is watching this, what's one of the biggest key takeaways that you could give to somebody when it comes to building a massive network that you're able to build such a large like tome, if you will.
You gotta be excited about other people's success and excited about promoting them and excited about, you kind of understand what they do well and then you share that with other people. I think when I started live streaming, I didn't even go live or host the show for like the first couple of months. I was just sharing what other people were doing on Twitter at a time where, retweeting and being generous with your account wasn't a foreign thing like it is today. So it was very easy to share, and then other people would share that stuff. And even after I started live streaming, I started doing these updates about who was doing shows and what was going to be on their shows and the news around the industry and stuff like that. So it was a lot of years of promoting people along with also promoting them within this. Like, you're going to get, that you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on your prediction. That I'm going to do a graphic. We're going to share it. And you're going to be included with a lot of other people who are fairly high profile in the industry. But I think it all starts with a joy of like understanding each person a little bit and what makes them tick, and then enjoying promoting that and promoting them and engaging with their ideas as well. But it really, you have to promote people. That's one of the best ways to build your network is just to share what other people are doing. And so few people do that anymore that it stands out. But over time, once people are in your network, everybody who's contributed got an invite. So all people who've been a part of it for 10 years, unless they, told me they didn't want to do it or they moved away or whatever. When I say moved away, I mean like, they've totally left the industry and,
that happens.
Not left the call, not left a forwarding address or whatever. But, pretty much everybody. And then, some years I also invite everybody who's ever been a guest on my show or I've been a guest on their show. So, it's a wide swath of people.
Well, here we go. You've got your 5 seconds to go ahead and ask for that vote here, Ross. Why should people go and vote for your book?
Vote for my book because you hear from so many different creators and business people on how they're using AI along with digital media. And that's kind of the story of this year is how do we integrate AI?
Nice. All right, folks, go vote. Dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. Our very next guest. I am absolutely tickled to death. He's actually over on the other side of the world, probably just getting up, getting his cup of coffee. Actually, he's probably been up for a little bit, because I think he gets up relatively early. He is actually the mastermind behind Magnetic Memory Method. You might have even seen his viral TED Talk a while ago talking about memory recall. So without any further ado, I want to introduce to you guys to Anthony Medevere, the author of The Victorious Mind. Anthony, how are you doing, buddy?
Welcome.
Good to see you again. How are you?
I'm alive and kicking. Speaking of, you're over on the other side of the world. So it's now like 10 a.m., I think is what you told me.
It's 6 a.m., but
6 a.m. Okay. Well, you probably would have been nicer at 10 a.m., wouldn't it?
Oh, it's all nice. It's all nice.
Thanks for getting up for us.
I was awake.
You're up anyway at this hour.
Yeah. I actually practice this thing where eventually you should be able to stay awake all night while you're sleeping. So like Tibetan Buddhists, they actually sleep in boxes sitting up. Like the box helps them sit up. And I've had some of these experiences, not often, but I'm definitely asleep and awake at the same time. It's really great.
So is it almost like a meditation that you're doing?
It's definitely something like a meditation. Part of the practice is to try to just hold on to awareness. And so in these experiments, and this could be totally self-delusion, but there's science studies and ancient traditions that talk about all this stuff where you actually track your passage into sleep and you're quite aware of it. So I often know that I'm falling asleep and, sometimes I can hold on to it for quite some time. And I've had a few experiences where I wake up and I'm still asleep. I mean, a lot of people have had these sort of hypnagogic experiences, but it's a little bit different in the meditation thing because you're quite aware of what's going on. And I don't know, I have just wild experiences with stuff like this. It's great.
We started off this interview very fascinating. Anthony, I knew you were going to be delivering for sure. So let's walk it back just a little bit to talk about The Victorious Mind, How to Master Memory, Meditation, and Mental Well-Being. When did you write this book, and what was the thought process in going into this?
Well, I was in Brisbane, and it was probably 2019 when I started it. And then by 2020 it came out, and it came out in the weirdest period, which is like a lockdowns everywhere and so forth. And I actually tried to delay the launch of the book, and Amazon allowed me to have one delay. But after that, they said, if you delay it again, you will, we'll penalize you or whatever. So I had to launch it in suboptimal sort of conditions. I would have waited. But in any case, that's when I wrote it. And I needed a victorious mind during that, as we all did. So that's sort of the genesis of it.
So what was your inspiration behind doing it? Because, I mean, obviously you went to go ahead and publish this, but was there a eureka moment, or was there like someone came and said, hey, I would love to learn about X, Y, and Z?
Oh, yeah. What happened is I met a guy who was a blogger about meditation, and he knew my memory stuff somehow. And we had coffee one day, and we were just talking about meditation. And I said, he asked me if I ever do mantras, like memorizing ancient Sanskrit codes to unlocking different levels of enlightenment. And I was like, that is such nonsense. Of course not. Anyway, he said, well, why not? Anyway, long story short is I at that time was like super militant Sam Harris atheist guy. Like, if it was something that you couldn't put on a spreadsheet, I had the hammer ready to bring the logic of rationality against all things. And he said, well, there's this guy named Gary Weber who he also was this atheist guy, and he needed something to be scientific, but he found that the Sanskrit actually has science in it. So you're a memory guy. Why couldn't you memorize all the Sanskrit? And I was like, okay, the gauntlet is thrown. And so 1,700 words of Sanskrit later, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my mind shuts off, and there's no thought to be seen anywhere. And I was like, okay, maybe this isn't nonsense. And so I kept at it, and then eventually wrote the book about it. And to this day, I mean, it's not bulletproof or foolproof, but I go through long periods of every day where I'm just looking around, and it's just like the entire universe is empty. There is no thoughts anywhere to be found. It's the wildest thing. It's so great. I recommend it to anybody if you have a problem with thoughts, which I did.
Yeah, I love meditation. It's something I do on a daily basis because it does help reel in some of my ADHD behaviors. Because sometimes I will go from one end of the spectrum to the next. I'll be like, yay, and the next I'll be like, ugh. So meditation really helps out. So describe to me a little bit more about meditation. What is that process like? Is this like, me chanting from the top of a mountain in a lotus pose, or is this something a bit more basic, like lying flat?
Well, one of the things I point out in Victorious Mind is that we should actually call it meditations. It's not like there's a single meditation. So walking meditation, chanting meditation, reflection meditation. I mean, journaling can be a kind of meditation. Really, what it is, if you get into the deep science of it, there's a difference between what's called phasic dopamine and tonic dopamine. So, when they talk about, I need a dopamine spike, or I know I'm being pulled along, yanked along on the internet, dopamine spike. Tonic dopamine is more, how do you just keep that beautiful pleasure on a straight line? So whatever type of meditation you're doing, kind of that's what you want, is this regulation of the dopamine. And then what happens, these are all technical terms, you get kicked out of your default mode network, which is like I, me, tomorrow, yesterday, this, now, blah, 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 blah. And you go into the task positive network, which is kind of like those guys who climb rock faces and they're just 100% focused on what they're doing. Because if you're not, you're in the task positive. Like you literally, that's the most positive task state you can be in, is you, the mountain face. And that's what happens. So whatever the meditation you choose, that's what you want, is to be so task positive that it's all chitananda, as they say, just bliss. So blissful that you're not, it doesn't even matter if it's blissful or not.
Very interesting.
Cool.
So where do people who are new to meditation start?
I don't know. I mean, you kind of have to be lucky. Like I was lucky. This guy said, I'd meditated before, of course, but he sort of threw down the gauntlet, and I would throw that down now, not trying to be, you know, the wizard who's giving you the call to adventure, but where you start is that you start. And it's not like there's, I don't have a little guru robe on or anything like that, but often the gurus will say, well, there's level 1. And the first thing that you do is you pass the 9 qualifications. And then, yeah, maybe, but I mean, we're in 2024 here. So you find a book, and here's how I would suggest that you think about it. We know that 90 days is about the amount of time of application you need in order to get enough of your neurons wiring in such a way that they can fire together. You know, that whole thing, wire to fire together. And now 90 days is not a magic number, but it's sort of like a bare minimum. And you can read Daniel Coyle in The Talent Code, I think it's called, where he gets into science. This is basically the premise of Atomic Habits with James Clear and so forth. If you don't do things for a sufficient amount of time, it never becomes habitual to the point that it takes on a kind of procedural memory thing where you get like addicted to going to the gym. You can't stop yourself. I don't feel like it, but I must appear at the gym, like that sort of thing. That's what you want. So that's where you start, is find the thing that you're actually going to do, and then do it for a sufficient amount of time that you get liftoff and the satellite remains in orbit. And knowing that satellites will decay, so then you figure out what is the thing that, you know, kicks up either the next satellite or helps the current satellite sort of go higher up into orbit and stay in orbit.
Gotcha. Well, you know, boy, 10 minutes goes by really fast, Anthony, and I do appreciate you popping on here and joining, of course, this virtual book fair. Tell us real briefly about your book and, of course, why people should vote for it.
Well, if you notice that the world is in suffering and pain and misery, and you hope that it could be a better place, then Victorious Mind is worth reading. And if voting for it helps more people read it, then that's why. But we own the trouble in this world, and it's up to us to do something about it. So I'm trying to do my part, and we need humans and others to get behind it. So thanks for having me and letting me talk about it.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on here. Folks, make sure you go over to dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote and see about voting for the Victorious Mind. Anthony, thank you again.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Ross, are you hanging in there, buddy? We only got a few more guests left here.
Hey, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, there we go. He's just warming up.
What are we, 3 hours into a live stream? 3.5?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. This is brutal on my spine. I don't know how you do it, man. I'm not sure how you do it, but boy, let's keep it rip roaring and going, because boy, we've already got our next guest in the queue.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things the world could use is a little more love in the world, and Joey Garrity is going to be joining us to talk about her book, Being Your Own Superstar: How to Expand Your Love Capacity. Joey's a Hollywood insider. She runs the Superstar Women Entrepreneurs Network. I think I got that right. And she's a good friend, podcaster, live streamer, video creator. She does it all. Welcome, Joey Garrity.
Hi, you guys. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Talk a little bit about being your own superstar and what you kind of learned in your time in Hollywood that separates celebrities and people who are considered the top superstars from maybe the average person, or what the average person doesn't know.
Yeah, so it was downloaded to me, the real reason I worked in Hollywood for 20 plus years. And it was so that I could observe superstars and how they get what they want, their dreams and desires, intentions. And it's just that they have a capacity to allow, receive, and accept massive, and I say Grand Canyon level love. So business and checks and opportunities, cars, horses, whatever they would receive as gifts, for instance, or if they were getting paid like a really big paycheck, they just have the capacity to allow it. And so that's just love in different forms.
So I'm just curious here. When you went to go and write this book, what was the first thought? What was the seed of inspiration for you putting this together?
I was at my friend's life celebration and I was asking why I worked in Hollywood and what my life purpose was really all about. I was quite blue at the time.
Mhm.
And so within a matter of seconds, they downloaded me and they connected dots of memories. And it was like memory after memory. The first a memory of me being at the Four Seasons in New York City and Jeff Goldblum is playing the piano, which was a prop and not really supposed to be played in the hallway, for instance, right? And me thinking, well, he didn't ask permission, and why is he doing that? And it's just that he just and like this whole crowd started surrounding him, right? And that was just this acceptance of him sharing his gift and talents, right? And just being in flow in the moment, right? And then like another download came to me, and it was like, how I got to Hollywood, and this influencer in San Francisco brought me there, and I had been meditating. I'm a huge meditator as well as your guest before me.
Perfect timing.
I've been meditating on going to Egypt, and the first movie I worked on was Stargate, right? And so all these dots were being connected for me. And at the time, I loved the experience of working there. I was learning all these tools from all these masters, right? And I was observing these superstars because we would go on these press tours with them, but I didn't know how they were getting what they wanted. I remember walking down Hollywood Boulevard. I lived right by the Roosevelt Hotel. I remember walking down and I'd see all the stars' names. And I remember thinking, wow, I hope in my next lifetime, I could like stand in that type of spotlight. I never thought for a million years that I could do the same. And when at my friend's life celebration, when all these memories were connecting for me, right, is all of a sudden I had that aha. And let me tell you, for years they were trying to get me to understand this aha, but I was ready. And I had the aha, and I was like, oh, I was like, so business deals and presence and dreams and intentions and is connected to how big your what I refer to as your love capacity, which is a muscle. And the stars that I was around, they just have like Grand Canyon level.
Is it something that they learn or are taught, or is it mostly something that they're just inborn? They just believe that they deserve that or they belong there.
No, inherently we all have it. And that was the other part of the download, is that they wanted me to bring this to the masses because they were tired of the masses feeling like, why don't I hitting this glass ceiling? Why am I not getting what I want? Type of thing. And they wanted everyone to know everyone can have what they want, right? It is just a matter of working on your love capacity, because it has nothing to do with who's more talented, who's more gifted. Nothing. It just has to do with just your capacity. And I tell talent now who work with me, they'll be like, well, why did that person get the role and I didn't? I said, their capacity is just bigger. It's not that they're more talented than you.
How's your life changed from after you had this download?
Yeah, so I decided that I really didn't want to be a self-development girl. That was not my intention. I didn't think that was my purpose. And so I told them, I said I would test the download. They also downloaded a series of daily habits for me. I would test it on myself, and within a year, my personal and professional life completely changed in the best of ways. Wow. And it still does, and it's incredible. I mean, things that I must have been dreaming about years ago will drop in now because the capacity is there, right? So, for instance, I know this might sound small, but it's not. I remember I was watching the MTV Awards. I mean, how long ago was that, right? And I was watching, and Ricky Martin came on the scene, and I remember thinking, I want to see Ricky Martin in concert. I remember it so well, and it didn't happen. I was disappointed, and so I let it go. And then a couple years ago, I got invited to the concert, and I didn't realize it, but Ricky Martin was opening for the concert, right? And all of a sudden the dot connected for me, right? I had always wanted to go to Red Rocks. I'd heard about it for years, but I put it away, like how it feels so far away. Red Rock, how am I going to get there? What is it about? And then all of a sudden I'm at Red Rocks last month, and I'm walking through Red Rocks, And I remember that dream had been with me for a long time, but I put it away. I quieted it down, you see. And so what I tell people, stop thinking about the dreams and intentions. Yes, write them down. In my book, I do have, it's a guide. I want you to write them down, but then put them to the side. I'm like, just build your capacity, your love muscle, Grand Canyon level, and let things fall in.
So it's all about being patient then when you're putting that stuff out into the world.
It really is about how willing and how much time and effort you'll put into the daily habits of growing the muscle itself. So it's the same thing like going to the gym. People are like, well, I want to get in shape. I'm like, well, how often do you go to the gym or walk or whatever it is, right? And they're like, oh, like a couple times. And I was like, well, you do that with your dreams and intentions, it trickles in, right? Because the muscle's not strong enough to hold it. And for some people, it will show up, right? Because they were able to get there, but they can't sustain it because the muscle isn't strong enough after a while. And so what starts happening, I call it burning down your house, burning down your business, right? Mm-hmm. Or you'll see superstars where they burn down their entire careers, right? Mm-hmm. Marilyn Monroe is a perfect example of that, right? Can you imagine all the love that Marilyn Monroe is getting? I mean, she's still getting it. I mean, she's a legacy, right? Yeah. And so people like, for instance, Coco Chanel, I studied her. She's a big part of my brand. And in homage to her is that she had a really terrible childhood. But let me tell you, with time, she was running with people that were helping to boost her confidence to get that muscle stronger and stronger. And clearly to a point where she was able to be Coco Chanel. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Joey. It's a great book, Being Your Own Superstar. You can vote for it at dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. And it's great to have you on and hear all about your awesome book.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Joey. Hey, our next guest, I am really geeked up. I told you I had a hero in self-publishing, but I also had a hero in the YouTube business because I would not be here. I would not have 2 YouTube channels if it wasn't for this person here. Her name is Julie Broad, and she actually is the founder of Book Launchers. It's a done-for-you service that works with nonfiction authors specifically, which is perfect. We bring her to a nonfiction showcase that we do this, but she's actually here to talk a little bit more about her latest publication, Self-Promote and Succeed, the No Boring Books way to build your brand and attract your audience. Julie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here too. Do I see our new mug hanging out in your back shelf there?
You do, yes. Angela got me hooked up. It got turned around. There we go. Now there we go. There we go. Yeah.
I thought it looked. There we go. See, we got matching mugs.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so boy, how many books deep are you into so far? Because I remember you had Self-Publish and Succeed. Did you have another one in that series yet, or you're working on the next one?
There's 2 in that series. I self-published 2 books prior to those, and that's really prior to Book Launchers. But yeah, there's Self-Publish and Succeed, and then Self-Promote and Succeed.
Interesting. So what are the plans going forward here in the whole Self-Publish and Succeed series? Are you planning on continuing this so that way authors can come to you as like the resource for learning how to self-publish as a nonfiction author?
I can't compete with your 8-book series here, my friend.
It's 12.
See, it's so many, I can't even count that high. So no, I got to stop there because I can't compete.
yeah, totally understand. But so with Self-Promote and Succeed, what was the inspiration behind this? What led you to writing this book?
So with Self-Publish and Succeed, it was 65,000 words before I even got to the marketing part.
Holy smokes.
So at that point, because originally Self-Publish and Succeed was supposed to be like the book, right? The book for nonfiction authors to write a book that is set up to sell, and then here's how you're going to go and sell it. But 65,000 words in, I had not started the marketing part, and I thought, this is 2 books. So we stopped it with a very short chapter, basically giving you a little bit of here's some marketing advice. And then, the next book, and Self Promote and Succeed, was 80,000 words. And still, book marketing is such a big realm, right? There's so many things, and there's not one path that goes, okay, here's your path, and this is going to guarantee you success. Like, I mean, goodness, don't we all wish?
I wish.
True?
Yeah.
So it's really, 4 different paths, and even then that's not actually there, there's nuances to every path, but that's how we broke it out. And I could have gone so much deeper into so many different areas. So in theory, there's more books there, but honestly, I think I'm going to stop there, and people can just watch the YouTube videos.
Yeah, you're very prolific with the YouTube videos, and you've been doing it for so long. And gosh, there's so much high production value. A lot of people always give me compliments, but I'm usually like, it's her fault. I watch her stuff, and I try to keep the bar up there. So what broke you into doing YouTube? Because you were an author, obviously, and you were crushing it. You were #1 and overall on Amazon up in Canada. That is not an easy feat. So what led you to YouTube?
It was actually that. So it's funny, as you're talking, I was thinking, well, what did lead me? So with my previous business, I had YouTube videos, and those were really great for growing that business. But to actually start talking about publishing, it was because my book went to #1, and I was so busy with my 2 real estate businesses that I just shot a handful of videos. And when people would say, can you help me with my book? I just sent them the videos. I was like, look, I'm too busy. I can't help you. But I had shot 7 videos basically saying, okay, here's what I did to get this book out there and bring it to #1. And so that's actually what started it, was because I didn't want to be rude and say, no, I can't help you. I'm too busy. But I wanted to give them something. But YouTube's my fun place. I mean, honestly, there's a part of me that thinks I'd just like to be full-time only doing YouTube.
You and me both, for sure. But I mean, gosh, you're so good at what you do, because you have such a deep client roster of successful authors and such. And gosh, what was that transition like, going from this real estate person to now becoming essentially a coach, a manager, if you will, and getting people their books out into the world?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't transition alone. So one of the things I did very differently with book launchers, partly because I moved from Canada to the United States, and so you're starting fresh, right? It's like nobody knows me, so we have to start completely fresh. But I hired people right off the hop. And so I had people on my team who had done this for other people. So I immediately had expertise to lean on. Like I could go, okay, this person did this with his books, and now he's helping other people, and this person's done the full publishing, so it wasn't me. And I actually don't work on the books at all. I help with titles, and I'll go, hey, that cover doesn't look right. I inject my unwanted opinion with my team from time to time, but I don't touch the books. And I think that helped with the transition, because I'm definitely an expert now. But when I launched this business, I'd only published 2 books. That doesn't make me an expert. So hiring experts onto my team was really, really vital to that transition. And then, I mean, YouTube helped too, because I immediately started shooting videos, just telling everybody everything I knew. And that attracts people, because they go, okay, she seems to know what she's talking about.
So what do you do when somebody comes with a boring book? Do you advise them to breathe some life into it, or start from scratch and just write a better book?
It depends. And some people do not want to hear it, or they don't believe us when we say, hey, this book really needs some life. Some people genuinely want to know. They're like, I'm so scared my book is boring. Please tell me if it is. Other people are so confident their book just kicks butt, and they bring it to you and you go, this isn't good enough to publish. And they get mad. They're really mad.
What do you mean my book's boring?
I mean, I always find a nice way to say it. But I mean, part of it is that a lot of people are so far down the journey, right? So, you've written the book, you've hired an editor, and then you bring it to a company and they go, hey, listen, like, this is not going to sell the way you want it to sell. You missed the mark on the hook and, capturing readers' attention. They sometimes will just go, oh, you're just trying to sell me services. And it's like, okay, I mean, good luck. And
go to
sadly,
market with it, see what happens.
Well, and sadly, some of them do. And, we actually have somebody that's in this process right now, and it's done terrible and they have an ugly cover and they have a bad title, and those things are really hard to fix after the fact. And so so I'm honest. I'm always honest. That's the thing is if I think your book is great and I tell you that, you can rest assured that I do think it's great. If I think your book needs a lot of work, I'm going to tell you that too, and just be prepared.
Hey, you've said my books are good. That means you're being legit. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's true, because what's the point in saying your book is good if it's not? And then you start getting all these terrible reviews. You're going to go, wait, she said it was good and she
lied to me
about, right? It's not going to help me any.
I don't know if you're able to track this, but do you get more clients from your YouTube videos or from your books?
Sometimes it's the chicken or the egg, because both impact it. But YouTube is definitely a very, very high ranking factor. It may not be the thing that they see first, just like the book might not be the thing they see first, but they work hand in hand, because there's been times where somebody finds us on video, reads the book, and then goes, oh my gosh, I need to work with you. And then it's happened in the other way too. So it's what I tell authors all the time is there isn't one thing that works to get book sales, to grow your brand. It's all the things that work in harmony together. And that's really why you have to do more than one thing, because I don't believe that one thing is going to build your brand or sell your book.
Oh my gosh. You know what? That is the perfect way to finish up our 10-minute interview here with you, Julie. So one last little plug here. Why should people vote for your book instead of the virtual book fair?
So that your hashtag no boring book, because you wrote a great book, right? It finds its readers and can have the impact and make the income for you that you want it to.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure. And we need to put this inside our books here right now, because you and I have never had a 10-minute conversation.
I know, right? I was just thinking that. I'm like, how are we going to only talk for 10 minutes? But you guys, 3.5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Way to go, you two.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's great to connect with you. I've heard so many good things from Dale. So,
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to chat with you for a very brief time, Ross.
Talk again soon. But thanks, Julie.
Folks, you get yourself a minute, go on over to dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. Either one of them's fine, because it's going to go to the same destination, and you can do numerous votes. There is a limitation to it, and play a little matching game as well. You can get some additional votes, but we still got 2 more guests in the pipeline here. Ross?
Our next guest is a social media strategist. She's a speaker, podcaster, video creator. She does it all in the content creation sphere. And she's got a great book that came out. I think she came out around the time I saw her at Podfest. It's called The Social Shift, The Road Back to Community. She's Katie Brinkley. Katie, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, you know what? You left one thing off of that list there, Ross.
Oh, you're fired, dude.
You know what you left off? Ross Brand superfan.
Oh, see, that's
true.
Perfect.
That's heartwarming.
Now we got to tell everybody we don't even have to hear the pitch. Go vote for Katie's book at dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. The subtitle of your book is The Road Back to Community. And what I find interesting about that is that I used to always kind of follow the path with people that I worked with, which is you put out some content, you develop an audience, you connect with them, they see you grow, and then at some point you create some sort of community structure for them to join. And in the past year or two, like anybody launching a podcast, a live stream show, I'm like, create the community from episode 1. Like, have a place to invite them. Don't rely on social media to get that message across. Talk about the importance of community in this social shift that you write about.
Yeah, so my book came out, you were right, it came out last December, and then was really launching it around the time of Podfest last year. And even though I have a social media agency, I love social media, let that be known. but I don't think that we should be on it all the time. Like, I didn't create my business so that I could spend all day on social media, because that sounds terrible.
Amen.
So how can we use social media as a tool? Because if you think about it, social media was designed so that you can build community and connect with people. Facebook groups. I mean, a couple years ago during the Super Bowl, Mark Zuckerberg spent millions of dollars promoting Facebook groups. We all want to find our people. We all want to find our community. If you have a podcast, you are stepping into the spotlight and saying, this is my belief. Let me be your guide. Let me help you. And you're building your community. So everything that I think that we're doing online with our podcast, with our books, with our social media, everything is designed around knowing who it is that you're talking to and building the message for that one person, not just virality, because that sounds, again, terrible.
So true. I think there's so often that I think many people romanticize social media and believe that that's where their success lives and dies. For those people that are very obsessed about it, what would be some advice that you would give to them that they can understand that it's more of a tool and more of an ancillary part of their life as opposed to being the sole purpose of their life?
Yeah, I mean, and for those of you that want to like just get brand deals and going viral, like that's an entirely different strategy. That's an entirely different business model.
Yeah.
But if you're a business owner that's using social media as a tool to grow brand awareness, how successful is your business if you're on social media all day, every day? What if you could just post less on one or two platforms and get better results? And that's what my book is about, is focusing in on one or two platforms, going all in on it, posting a few times a week, but for that one person who wants to say, I'm in Ross Brand's community. I'm in Katie Brinkley's community. Oh, I do the 4-post strategy that Katie talks about. So focus less on, again, like I said, the virality. Focus in on how you can maximize your reach on one or two platforms.
How important is it to build community right on the social platform versus having a destination off the platform to take people to, whether it's a Discord channel or it's a locals community, or there's so many different options. But like, do you want to get them off social media, or do you want to just build a community using the tools that social media gives you?
I like to think of social media as that. I mean, so I come from traditional marketing. I used to do media buys and newspaper buys. I know how much it costs for a billboard. And with a billboard, you're just hoping that the right person drives by and can remember your name and your email and your website. You're just hoping that all that clicks from seeing your stuff enough. With social media, you can get directly in front of your target audience. And that, believe it or not, the algorithms are trying to help you, but you have to create the content that resonates with them. So I think that with social media, it's a very affordable way for business owners to get in front of their ideal clients and customers. And from there, but you have to keep in mind, like, I don't go to Instagram to listen to a podcast. I open up Spotify. You have to keep in mind that people are on social media platforms to kill time. How can you make sure that every time that you show up in someone's feed, they say, that's my person, or I haven't seen Ross's content in a while. What's he up to? And they go and type you in.
Right.
I think that with all of it, kind of long-winded answer here is you need to keep in mind that social media is a spot for you to show up and speak your message to get them offline, but that should not be the goal with every single post. People want to be on social media to kill time. How can you educate them to take and have them say, I'm ready to go one step further with you?
So what was the seed of inspiration for writing this book? Obviously, you're very great on camera. You know exactly what you're talking about. So what led you down the path of saying, let me put pen to paper so I can get a book out into the world?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, the reason I wanted to write the book was because I hated how we had become so dependent on showing up on social media. Like during COVID, it was great because all of a sudden now, like, people had the gift of time and they were showing up all the time.
Yeah.
But then the world opened up and it's like, well, I got things to do other than be on TikTok every day. But now we've created this culture of like, oh, I have to show up more. I have to show up more. I have to do more. I have to do more. And then I went to the park and there was a group of teenagers and they were all sitting in a circle and they were like this. No one was talking to each other. Even though I have a social media agency, the real life connections are where the magic happens. How can you build this community online so that the second I show up at PodFest and I see Ross from across the room, we know each other, even though we've only seen each other in 2D form.
Right.
And that's what happens when you show up the right way and start building a community. I want people to show up effectively online so that they can get off of it and live their life. Because living your life in front of a computer screen sounds terrible to me.
Right.
That's just me. So that's why I wrote the book, is to get people an effective strategy so they can get in, be effective, and get the heck out.
The Social Shift, The Road Back to Community is the book. Vote for Katie over at dalelinks.com/vote or liveuniverse.com/vote. I know you're busy. I know you're speaking today and everything. So thank you so much for making time to come on with us. It's always fun catching up.
Yeah, it's always good seeing you, Ross. And I can't wait to Dale's great meeting you quickly. Thanks for doing this. You guys are rock stars for doing this for so long, and really appreciate you guys sharing the social shift.
Thank you so much. Take care, Katie.
Well, it's funny. We are getting down to the last of it, but please, folks, make sure you stick around because we do have a special guest coming up here right shortly here. And after that, of course, we need to highlight a couple of authors that were not able to make it today because, well, unfortunately, life gets in the way, but they still have fantastic books. So I want to make sure I give them a shout out. But speaking of shouting out, this whole event wouldn't have been possible if not for the tireless work that Ross Brand put into this thing. Let me tell you, everything from the graphics to even the streaming, the hosting. So please, folks, if you're watching this somewhere, give Ross a big round of applause. And the very next thing is, this wouldn't have been possible. The whole virtual book fair wouldn't have been possible without the sponsorship and support of ebookfairs.com. Folks, if you are looking into getting your next great book, they're accepting readers over there. But more importantly, if you're an author that's looking to take your book marketing to the very next level, then eBook Fairs is for you. And in fact, we now actually have the founder, Kenny Myers, right on the line right now. Kenny, we're so glad to get you. I'm so sorry about the miscommunication. Apparently, he didn't get the memo that he was on the very first person. So he's going to be the last person now. How are you, Kenny?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been really fun to listen to everyone talk about their books and just to get to know everybody a little bit. So this is just an awesome event. So really enjoying it.
Have you seen an ebook fair done this way before?
No, I really always really wanted to do something like this, and so this is amazing. You just really put together a really great group of authors with some amazing books, and so I'm excited about every aspect of this. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you for everything you've done to make this happen. Thanks for responding to my last-minute emails to get a few people in at the last second. I appreciate the kind words from Dale. It was Dale's idea to do the virtual fair part of this, and it was his idea to work with ebook fairs, and it's been really a cool part of this to be able to send people there to vote for the books and promote all the authors on ebook fairs and talk about just the experience of having a virtual book fair is just so important, I think, to what we're doing here with these interviews. And I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really, again, this is just a great event, and I really think it features a lot of what ebook fairs is about, which is really here for the authors, right? It's for why it even exists is because I wrote a book and I needed to market it, right? And so really, authors being able to connect with each other and being able to spread the word about their books is literally what ebook fairs is about. So this is amazing.
Can you talk about some of the I'm sorry, Dale.
You're good. You're actually thinking the same thing I am.
Can you talk about some of the other features of ebook fairs? A lot of people know about the fairs and submitting their book now, but what are some of the other ways authors can take advantage of the features of ebook fairs in order to reach more people?
Sure. So we do have a lot of features that are kind of unique to our system. The first one being editorial book reviews. So just kind of a great way for you to be able to get someone to read your book, provide you with some really hopefully viable and good feedback. At the same time, you can take those editorial reviews and put them onto your Amazon Author Central account. And we've seen some really good results out of the authors that have done that. So several of the authors have gotten, badges on Amazon, new release badges and things like that, just from, and all they really did was use our editorial review process. So, I mean, of course, we can't guarantee that. Who knows, what Amazon's doing or how they decide to do it, but it certainly helps to get more eyes on your books and just to get that feedback as well. So I think editorial reviews is a really great feature to use. But it's not just that. We have things like a book cover grader, which we think is relatively unique. What you can do is you can upload your book, and it will run all kinds of mathematical calculations on it that I won't bore you with, but I absolutely love. And it's just doing things like symmetry checks and color harmony checks, and doing some AI analysis on it to make sure that your book cover is safe and will be accepted by online bookstores. So you can kind of get a feel for whether or not anything that you don't realize is offensive could be offensive in some cultures and things like that. So it'll point out a lot of those types of things that can be very helpful for authors, I think. So tools like that. We also have a barcode generator, which is free for authors. Really, it's free for anyone to use. You can come check it out and create a ISBN 13, barcode for your books, and they are print ready, so good to go. That was also a good time. So there's lots of features like that. Mainly, I think though I would encourage people to get on there and just get to know the other authors, right? Spend some time, because it really is a community. It's about taking advantage of the ability to be able to work with each other to spread the word about our books. And so that's really probably the most important feature of it. I guess the last thing that I would mention as it relates to this is when you do a book fair, we also do a $50 Amazon card giveaway with each of those as well, which the thing that's nice about that is it's a co-op into your email marketing platform. So if you are a new author, maybe you don't have a really large author platform, you don't have a lot of emails, you can get some relatively quickly just by participating in fairs and introducing people to your book, and that's about it. So basically, a relatively straightforward way for you to be able to get more people to reach out to you. And I think the key there is in our book fairs, like for instance, this book fair is a nonfiction showcase. So it's highly likely that people that are coming to look at your book might also be interested in Dale's book because it's in a related genre. And so I think one of the things that's really nice about book fairs is if you join a romance book fair and you're a romance author, that makes a lot of sense, because all of the books that are in the fair be romance related, and the friends and fans of everybody that's coming to view those books should also be interested in your book. And so I think it's really just about making sure that you take advantage of those opportunities that will really give your book the best chance to get more visibility.
It's good stuff. Boy, there's so much that ebook fairs does, and I'm so glad that that you were willing to be the sponsor of this podcast, kind of a podcast, right, Ross? I don't think we're going to do it.
Podcast, live stream,
yeah, we'll go with
YouTube
live
show.
Stream.
It's extravaganza.
It's so funny because Kenny actually had reached out to me. Gosh, it's been a few years ago. Was it in 2020? Maybe 2020, I think.
Yeah, right at the very beginning. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he was brand new to it. I remember. It was very exciting, and so now I'm finally getting into it, and it's very funny. I wasn't 100% certain about the $50 Amazon gift card, so I didn't want to speak out of turn, but I kept saying, Okay, ask Kenny about the $50 Amazon gift card. So does that go for every fair? And are you going broke doing that?
Yes, yes. So it is something that is very, very active, and it really does help drive people to the book fairs. It gives them a reason to come to. So it's what we try to do is try to make something just like you're trying to win Best in Show. Basically, that's what we do with every book fair too. Is we have authors trying to drive as much traffic as possible so that they can win an additional marketing package from us if they win Best in Show. And similarly, we want to give readers a reason to come too. It's like not just to support your friends and your favorite authors, but also you have a chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And I think Amazon actually is literally right outside my house right now. So who can't use an Amazon $50 gift card?
So true. You can do a lot with that. More importantly, you can buy more books, of course, that are featured inside these virtual fairs.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a question though. You're an author. Are you able to still do writing? Are you still actively working on your next book or promoting your current one?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I'm attending a festival here on October 5th to sell some books of mine. So basically, I am a Norse myth writer. So basically, my series is I have 3 books in the series. I just released one in July. So I am able to still do it, but it is definitely more difficult because I have to really be on top of scheduling my time, right? To make sure that I set aside that time for writing. And also I do find that I can only write about 1,500 words a day that are decent. And so I know about when I need to cut it off. And so that also helps too. It's not like I need tons and tons of time to sit down and do it. I need a good amount of really focused time throughout the week, and I can get it done. So basically, I still love doing it. Absolutely got into this because I love the creative aspects of it. So for me, being able to write is just important, and it's a part of I hope to be able to give to my kids. Right? It's kind of that legacy that you're able to leave behind is these books that you've written, and kind of get an idea some about how you think and what you're all about. And so for me, it's just an important aspect of my life. And so I'll probably always write, even though I'll also be at the keyboard a lot, knocking out code. So I'm doing both.
Wow. Kenny, thank you so much for your time. Ross and I both appreciate your contributions to this, and we anticipate and hope that we can be able to do something again in the very near future.
Awesome. Well, I would love to do it. Thank you again so much. Really appreciate you having me on to talk as well. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Kenny. We appreciate it. Hey, folks, you can get more details about ebook fairs if you go to ebookfairs.com. They are the sponsors of this broadcast. They help make all of this possible. But I will have to say, though, that my co-host here, he carried a lot of weight here on this one. He really, between the graphics and organizing a lot of the stuff. But there are some authors that weren't able to make the mix. Can I be able to mention those here, Ross?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So very first one, Kevin Tumlinson put out a book called The 30-Day Author, Develop a Daily Writing Habit and Write Your Book in 30 Days or Less. Kevin's a good personal friend of mine. He's actually the former director of marketing over at Draft Digital. This is one of my favorite books, and I specifically reached out to him to promote this one. It is very good. It is one of those ones that you can probably sit down and read during your lunchtime. But that's Kevin Tumlinson's 30-Day Author. The other one as well is going to be Nick Thacker. Great friend of mine. He actually is the founder of bookcareerinayear.com. He put out a new book recently called Platform Mastery. Build a website that sells your fiction. Nick is a prolific author, both in fiction and nonfiction. He is actually a USA Today bestselling author, and he's one of the funniest guys I know on the face of the earth. The dude is hilarious. I could be in the worst mood, and he breaks me out of it every single time. MK Williams. I talk about some of my heroes in the YouTube business. MK is one of my absolute favorites. I love what she does out there. She actually put out one part of her series called Self-Publishing for the First Time Author. If you're looking to get into the business of writing and publishing, MK is your gal. Self-Publishing for the First Time Author is also on the docket. Now, I believe, let me scroll through. I want to make sure I didn't know. Oh, and of course, great friend of mine, Keith Wheeler. How could I forget about Keith Wheeler books, Ross? What am I doing? He actually had a book that he just put out this year called Make Money Self-Publishing Puzzle Books. It's essentially a step-by-step guide telling you exactly how you can do puzzle books and launch those into the world. Keith Wheeler, oddly enough, I don't know if I've told you this before, Ross, was a former coaching student of mine, and now he has become a very big YouTuber, 20,000, 30,000 subscribers. Wow. Yeah, dude's doing really well. He makes a man proud, I'll tell you. And that right there rounds out our entire panel of books over on the Nonfiction Showcase.
I got one more for you before we wrap up.
Do we? Okay.
Junaid Ahmed wasn't able to join us today,
yes,
but
that's right.
He did promote the fair and did enter a book. It's the 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution, from beginner to broadcast quality. Junaid is a podcaster, video creator, but one of his specialties, I shouldn't say his only specialty, he's author, of course, is helping people build high-quality home studios for YouTube and for their podcasting and video creation. So thank you to Junaid as well for entering, and hopefully we'll have you on another time.
That'd be fantastic. Ross, boy, we are coming up near the 4-hour mark. And as much as I'd love to sit here and jib-jab for the next 8 minutes for us to fill the time, it just would be ridiculous and such. Any final closing thoughts as we start to wrap up today's broadcast?
This was a blast. I mean, what do we have, about 20 guests on, I think, today? A lot of fun. Go check out the fair, vote for their books, dalelinks.com/vote or livestreamuniverse.com/vote. Either one will take you over to the fair. You can see all the books. You can vote for your favorites.
Multiple times. You can vote multiple times.
Keep
and
clicking
that
vote button until it tells you voted as many times as you're allowed at this.
Yep. Did you already vote?
Come back more and vote again.
Did you vote already?
Of course.
Yeah, I didn't realize I could vote for. I've been doing these fairs. Like, I've already done 2 of them before. You would think I would have voted by now, but I went in there today and I was like, wonder what happens if I vote for mine. I'm like, click. Oh, I'm like, click. Oh, and I was like, after a while, they're like, hey, enough voting there, buddy. You've had enough.
Now, can I enter for the $50 gift card, or you have to be? You can't be somebody whose book's in the fair.
I don't know. That's a Kenny question. Unfortunately, he's already off the air.
So, of course, I could go to another fair vote and enter for. So
you go.
Why jump the gun and take it away from one of our people who were here today? Anyway, I want to thank everybody who was here. We can't even go down the whole list. Catch the replay. Check it out if you missed. So much great knowledge about the self-publishing industry, about content creation, digital marketing, and online business, and a whole lot more. It was so much fun. Thanks for this great idea, Dale. Thanks for connecting us with ebook fairs. The Nonfiction Showcase continues offline again at ebook fairs. Go over there. You can vote for the rest of the week. It'll be 7 days starting today. Vote for your favorite authors, and check out the website as well. It's a great resource.
Well, folks, I think Ross put it really good. So on behalf of Ross Brand and myself, Dale L. Roberts, we want to thank you for tuning in for the very first ever virtual book fair that the 2 of us put together, the Nonfiction Showcase. Hopefully you have something again like this very soon. Till later, thank you so much for tuning in.